Hey everyone, Nicole here with a video walkthrough of the Underdog Tools browser extension offered by Rotogrinders.com. If you don't have this extension installed, it's pretty simple. You can get a direct link, or you can go to the Chrome Web Store, the Microsoft Edge Web Store, or the Mozilla Firefox Web Store, and search for Rotogrinders and download the Underdog Tools extension. Once you've added it, it's browser specific. You go on to Underdog Fantasy, and there will be an extension option with the RG logo. We'll have this little logo. You can click on that, and you need to sign in with your RG credentials. Once you've done that, you'll get a notification saying that you've successfully signed in. Premium members will have additional content on Underdog now when they enter a contest. Those live under the Pick'em tab. So when you go to Pick'em now, just make sure you refresh the page and it picks up the sign-in credentials. You're going to start to see Rotogrinders projections. This is very handy for player props. We've got interceptions, completions, the rush yards, everything you could want here for NFL, NBA, and MLB so far. So you'll see these projections, and then you can start comparing the difference with the Rotogrinders projections and the actual prop line offered by Underdog and decide which over and under picks you want to start making. Right, so this one's really close. This one is an over for us, those kind of things based on what we're seeing on the RG projections and the props offered. You can go by sport, or you can go to see all of them at the same time. So here's just NFL, just NBA, and this works on the over-under tab and also on the rivals tab. So under rivals, you're comparing two guys in a certain stat category with each other. So anywhere with the orange markings, you've got Rotogrinders projections active for them, and you're comparing that with each player. We hope this will make it much easier and quicker for you to go take our projections, compare them to the site's offerings, and then make informed decisions on what contest to enter and who to play. Until next time, this has been Nicole Valencia for Rotogrinders.com.
Yo, what is going on, Rotogrinders? Week 17 here.
That's not your normal intro.
Well, I was thrown off because we were talking about Squidbillies and the French fry guy and the shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And that was our pre-show conversation. I don't think there was any football spoken. Because you know why, Grant? We like to keep it organic here. Of course, this is the Rotogrinders flagship show here.
Nah, I like
it's
my
called Grinders Live.
pesticides.
What's that?
I like my pesticides.
Is that what? I don't know. What did I reference about pesticides?
Organic.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's too early for me. You got that one past me, Grant.
Dude, it's like noon where you're at.
No, it's 10. Time zones are a thing. And,
10:30. Oh, so I had to wake up so early. You suck, Dean.
Great. You know, this is the show. We are live. This is not just our pre-show banter. What's up, y'all? What's up, everybody out there in the YouTube land? Hit that like button. Do subscribe for content like this. We're here for 2.5 hours here, taking y'all straight up the lock. It'll be good times for sure. Keeping an eye on actives and inactives as well. An hour and a half before kickoff. We're going to go with the information we have as of now. And there's a lot going down. Of course, 1 week left in the regular season. Lots of potential moving parts on this slate we're going to keep an eye on. Grant, you seem fired up. You seem to want to say hello. What's going on? How are things in your world? How do you feel about this massive 14 gamer? Not messing around.
Yeah, I'm not messing around. Condensed player pool, eating chalk, and being a real Dean Shavelson.
Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Well, I'm probably going to lose money if I'm you. I am sleep deprived.
Yeah, well, if you can just power through for the next hour or so, let's say hello to Andre as well. Andre, what's going on, man? The nicest, so much nicer, a much more fun, pleasant conversation than Grant. How are things in your world? 10:30, of course, East Coast time as well for Andre. What's up? Do we like this 14 game slate? There's a lot of options for sure.
It's a headache. I didn't really sleep much, but like I'm not on 10 today. I'm just tired, so I'm trying to make it to 1:00 and then gonna pass back out and hopefully have a lot of money in my account.
Nap buddies.
But still recovering from New Year's? Is that what's going on?
Oh no!
Are you still recovering from New Year's?
No, I just couldn't really sleep last night. I was up doing a lot of research, trying to prep everything for today to get it ready, so I don't have to do a lot of it.
Hey, forward-thinking show, DFS. All we care about is today and today only, Andre. But you always talk about how much you like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow crushed last week. I assume he took you somewhere, or maybe not. I don't know, because he obviously was 500 plus yards.
He was taking me places early, but I forgot to play Tyler Boyd and do double stacks with him, so I didn't take full advantage of it. I was kind of upset at myself. The one person who touts Joe Burrow every week forgot to do the one thing that Joe Burrow does in double stacking when he goes off in the biggest game of the year for him, or career for him so far. So I ended up breaking even. So that's my fault.
Oh, fair enough. It could be worse, I suppose.
I heard you won money with Joe based on me and Dre's advice.
I never heard of the guy until you guys talked about him last week. So thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, Joe Burrow? You just call him Joe, I believe. And I did happen to have the Tyler Boyd, Joe Burrow, and one of the other Bengals as well. And yeah, I finished 6th in that Yahoo contest, and the $1 million contest over there. And kind of bummed that I lost a second Boyd touchdown, but they called it a touchdown. They had to overturn it, but he wasn't in, or it wasn't a catch, so I can't be too upset about it. And of course, some things went my way as well. But yeah, we got the board 6th. We're gonna try our best to take that down today. Of course, you all know over there at Yahoo, if you use the promo code Grinders25, you get a free $25 bonus on your first deposit. And the same deal. I'm checking out that lobby right now, and as always, they have their built-in overlay as far as their $1 million baller. $1 million up top, flat payout, $100,000 to first. And if it does sell out, which it may, we're at 28,000 out of 40,000 right now, still plenty of overlay. It's still built in $200,000 overlay. It's the best contest in the business. And I'm going to do my best. Well, the plan is to get 150, assuming that contest is still open. I have a script kind of sort of ready to go, waiting, depending on information, but yeah, trying to fire 150 once at that contest once again today. Grant, there is some weather. I wanted to mention that as well. I want to go ahead and put that in our chat. Of course, that's our chat on YouTube currently is not a thing. We are chatting on the Discord, Rotogrinders Discord channel. It is free. How would you go about doing that, YouTube? Well, if you want to talk to us, ask some questions. Devin's going to compile those questions, throw them our way. We're happy to do so. Go to rotogrinders.com/Discord. We're in the live stream chat channel. That is a free channel. There are some premium channels, but you do not have to be a premium member to join this channel. Again, rotogrinders.com/Discord live stream chat. Fire off some questions there as well. And Devin, if you don't mind, I'm sure Devin can do this. He's a multitasking producer. Go ahead and drop Kevin Ross weather report. Currently orange in Tennessee, orange in Seattle. The night game for Green Bay, we don't really care about that, but that's orange as well. Buffalo, most of the ugliness should be early before the game even starts. Some potential cold rain mix in Tennessee. Seattle, as always, rain and a little bit of wind as well. Potentially sustained winds around 15 miles per hour. Grant, do we care about this stuff? Is it worth acknowledging? We acknowledged it. There you go. That's something.
Yeah, that's all we had to do was acknowledge it. It's not really going to make a huge difference outside of maybe Tennessee. Seattle, not terrible winds, not terrible rain. Not a great game anyways, but.
Oh, yeah, it's Seahawks and Lions, just brutal.
Someone asked, does weather matter in the NFL?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the extent is also often up in the air, but the one thing that matters more than anything is super cold temperatures, super high wind, super low visibility. It's general. I largely disregard a lot of things unless it's extremes, like a 25 mile an hour wind, like torrential downpour, fog, clarity issues, stuff like that.
Yeah, I try not to freak out too much. Andre, you kind of the same way. Like the extremes, I will react to, and a lot of times the lines will reflect it. But generally speaking, like I'm not going to like not play Josh Allen because it's cold and it's Buffalo and there probably some wins to some degree, but he's still like in my player pool. Is that kind of where you're at as well?
Yeah, like that's normal weather up in Buffalo, so he should be fine with that. I try to think of things like that and take into consideration, especially more so today, because like the weather edge. If you didn't post that or if you remember, get that. That will help you out a lot and determine help you with your strategy and determine a little bit of where you should go more towards with your game scripts and everything. I think personally to that.
Yeah, and that's why, especially this time of year, you love the games in the Dome. One of the most appealing games in the slate is Arizona and Dallas. High total. If you look at Cardi's, the Blitz, it is projected for I think for like 4 or 5, maybe 6 plays more than the next fastest game. So fast pace, really really appealing DFS plays. That should be a game that should pop for sure. And as far as there's some ugly games, Grant. And before we dive in and break it down, position by position, that kind of thing. That's how we do it. Are there any teams that you're just saying like, nope, I am not playing any, just crossing them out, just 0 players in that team, and that's that. Don't care.
Yeah, I have a lot.
Can you
Jacksonville,
run those
New England, Miami,
New England.
Tennessee. I guess I am playing someone from the Jets. Pretty much crossing off Washington, crossing off Philly. Not actually playing much Cincinnati. Not playing it. No, I'm playing. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess.
You're not playing Giants, are you?
No, not playing the Giants. Not playing the Bears. That game's just full on cross off.
I love the Bears. I love Montgomery. Montgomery's going to crush.
Yeah, I forgot about Montgomery. Yeah, I have one-offs in a few games. I keep looking at these. I'm like, I'm not playing Jackson. I'm like, I'm playing some Barrios. Like, the only teams that I'm fully crossing off are Tennessee, Giants, Miami, Jacksonville, and I think potentially New England. I might have a few shares of like Myers, but yeah, my player pool is pretty condensed. I'm only playing like across all sites 5 or 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I think I like some Harris as far as New England, but they're getting Stevenson back today. By the way, did that line move? Do you have that in front of you? Did you have your eye on that as far as the Tennessee Miami game? It's down to 40.5. I feel like that has moved. Maybe that is reflective some of the weather conditions there.
Yeah, no, I think it dropped a point.
Okay.
Or 2.
Andre, same question. I mean, is there any teams you can just say offhand, like, I'm just not playing anybody in this team? That's that?
Yeah, Denver, the Giants, Jacksonville, and Atlanta.
Yeah, it just certainly seems like there's some teams that would just love to hit that sim button and end the season, just get this over with. And Denver is another one that's just a mess. Yeah. And it's annoying because Cortland
Denver can still make the playoffs.
Denver?
I think.
Yeah, they can. They have a really outside chance to make it in there, but with the way COVID just hit them, it's probably gonna be virtually impossible.
It is according to 538, their predictive model, it's less than a 0.1% chance that the Broncos make the playoffs.
So you're saying there's a chance.
You're telling me there's a chance. There you go. More like 1 in a million. All right. And the weird thing about this slate, as we kind of dive in and break it down, there's not a lot of value. It's so odd. It's like a 14-game slate, and the value is just kind of bad. Like Braxton Berrios is like what we're going to be talking about, and that's kind of like one of the chalky receivers. And Courtland Sutton's another guy. It's like, really? Courtland, and then he was on the COVID list over the week. I don't know if he's I don't know if he actually had it or was it. Say it again.
He's back.
Yeah, well, he's expected to be back today, and like he's the guy. Like because Denver is depleted, they have nothing there. I don't know how good efficiency will be, but you probably get a reasonable amount of volume. I'm not sure if he was a close contact as far as COVID, if he had COVID, and that's the other tricky thing is like different players react different ways, and you have no idea to know what somebody's individual circumstance happens to be. Like Lockett supposedly was winded, Tyreek Hill was winded, dealing with COVID, and now we're getting Kelsey back, and I just don't know how to project this stuff, and I don't know what you base it off of outside just like taking some chances. But all right, Andre, quarterback, and I think quarterback this week will be heavily determined. Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going to be running the show, at least not officially, but that's the assumption now that Garoppolo is not expected to play. It's a 4:00 game, so we're not going to officially know, I don't think. But all reports suggest there's like no chance Garoppolo plays today. Are you in on the Trey Lance chalk, and especially like on DK? where it opens the salary up again. Like you guys tell me where the salary savers you like today, because the salary savers for me are not very appealing. Yeah, the two big spends of Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. We'll talk about those guys enough as well. That's their respective positions. But Trey Lance, it seems like a fork in the road for me, Andre. Where are you at as far as Lance? He's I think your highest projected quarterback as far as DK. I'm going to pull it up right now.
He is, I think, and I am not playing him at all today.
Oh, move, love it.
There's no
because
there's like going over his stats, and I know people talk like I get the floor. I get that he's 4,800 and is a cheap price, but what upside does he offer me in this matchup besides rushing? He can't really pass the ball efficiently. I know he didn't have George Kittle the last time he didn't play, but they also get Mitchell back, and we know that Houston is not that good of a team against the run, and we know that Kyle Shanahan loves to run the ball. Therefore, he's going to run the ball with Eli Mitchell all day long, in my opinion, where Trey Lance is not going to have a chance to put up a potential high enough scoring GPPs for me to take one down. So to me, I'm just going to fade him altogether. I'll have to think about it a lot, but it just makes the perfect sense. Like he lucked into 20 fantasy points because he played in the second half of that Seattle game. And so the team didn't have the time to prepare for him. And a team where they actually had time to prepare for him against Arizona, he put up 15 fantasy points, which is not bad. But at 5.7K at that time, that is not ideal for what you want him to do. So to me, I don't think he's personally someone I want to play today. And also it's going to be a slower paced game. Someone again that's going to actually have more plays as well. So I'm fading him completely.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm torn. I don't really want to play him, but because of the heavy ownership, but not just that. And the number for DK, our projected number is 20%. And that's we've seen 20%, 15%. That's high on an 11 game slate. This is a 14 game slate. Of course, there are some teams that you want no part of their quarterback situation, like Detroit, Carolina, probably the Giants, maybe splitting quarterbacks, things like that. But there's more players in the pool, and still we're talking about 20% on DK. Fanduel, where the cap's a little bit looser, we're looking still at 17.5%. I'm more likely to not play him on Fanduel. If I'm going to play him, I'm going to play him on DK just because I just desperately need that salary. Granted, it sounded like you didn't want to play Lance either. And there's a scenario where he throws.
No, I'm playing him. I just said I like the move.
Oh, okay. Give me the counteract, because of course he can run the ball 15 times and 100 yards and get in the box, and who cares if he throws for 120 yards. So I guess that's your thought.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought. He can run the ball 15, 20 times. Shanahan's going to specifically make plays for him. His floor really isn't that low. Oh yeah, he's not going to throw. It doesn't really matter. He's still going to run the ball a decent amount. He has multiple touchdown upside. He's red zone threat that Shanahan will end up using. Volume's not really going to be there, but we don't have a huge sample size with him, pretty much 2 full games. And then he put up 15 and 20. And I'm expecting 20 to 25 in this spot here, which for his price tag makes things work. We don't have a lot of value on this slate. We're just kind of forced into it. I'm playing him naked, pretty much, is what
That's
I'm
what
doing.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
do the same thing, because but Deebo Samuel's got an exorbitant price tag. It's just really hard to justify that. Mitchell coming back, might steal some of his carries. Lance being back there might steal some of his carries. Of course, in tournaments, you can play some Samuel, but it's hard to justify that tag. And Kittle's really pricey as well, too. And he could just be blocking all 4 quarters for all we know. He's a really good blocker. You might see 4 targets. Is Houston going to push back? They're basically 2 touchdown dogs here.
Well, how many times have we seen that? And they've been pretty close in the last, 5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it's football. You don't really know. And Davis Mills, props to Mills. He's been better than we've given him credit for throughout this season.
I've given him credit. I'm the only one that's given him credit.
Not the Mills family, I'm sure, is on board. But and they're getting Cooks coming back from COVID, and that's another one of those run backs. I'm I'm not really sure. I hope he's fine. But you never really know how he's feeling, obviously. But yeah, I'm with you as well, as most likely playing him just a la carte, because I don't know how much you need as receivers. And even if Samuel gets in the box, I don't see this massive ceiling game. I suppose it could happen. Sure. Andre, give me the quarterbacks you're playing instead of Lance. Josh Allen, we talked about it. Again, potential blowout there against Atlanta, but they seem to still like, step on that gas pedal a good bit. Prescott versus Arizona seems like that both those quarterbacks in that game seem awesome for tournaments. Brady, Mahomes, all those guys are certainly interesting for tournaments as well. And then Jalen Hurts is one that scares me too, is because Philadelphia loves to just run that ball, especially if they have the lead. Andre, the quarterbacks you're playing instead of Trey Lance, who do you have for me?
You pretty much named everyone I'm playing except for Jalen Hurts. So I'm not playing him today. But I love getting to the little bit like on the higher price end of quarterbacks today. It just makes it more interesting, especially like Josh Allen going against Atlanta. I know it's outside, but I think with the weather is yellow right now, but I think he'll still be fine by kickoff, and they're one of the highest totals on the slate. And we know that Emmanuel Sanders is going to be out, so I like taking the chance with the different receivers like Gabe Davis today. We're even going with or Stephon Diggs today. So to me, getting to him is fine. I'm gonna have probably at the field when it comes to Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes is someone else I like too. But I don't know how much I'm gonna get to him because I'm getting to a lot of Josh because his receivers are obviously cheaper. But Patrick Mahomes, pairing him with Tyreek or Travis just costs you a lot of money, and there's not a lot of value today. Unless you want to spend all the way down, which I do have a couple value plays at a wide receiver. But I'll probably get to a little bit of Patrick. I'm going to definitely get to a little bit of Patrick Mahomes today. The quarterback though I am interested in most is like the ones that you mentioned before, Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott, that from that game. More so on the Kyler. I'm going to have probably more Dak Prescott, but I'm really highly interested in Kyler because I think Kyler's not going to come in at this amount of ownership. He's going to come in less because of what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, and they're going to think that he can't throw the ball to anybody but DeAndre Hopkins. So everyone can keep thinking that. I'm just going to keep targeting it and keep rostering him because he got Zach Ertz there, who I think he likes targeting a lot. So I think he'll get to him a lot. And then I'll also pair with Christian Kirk and a little bit of AJ Green in tournaments, and hopefully just spike an upside game and have this be a shootout back and forth game between the two. Obviously, I'm going to play my guy Joe. I'm going to play a little bit of him
Good old Joe.
I'm not going to play a lot of him, but just because, like I said, the same thing, pricing with the receivers and the run backs, it gets expensive there. So I'll play a little bit of him, but another sneaky guy and a sneaky game that I really like too is the Rams and Baltimore with Matthew Stafford. They're trying to actively get Cooper Kupp that record. Unless they double team Cooper Kupp like they did against Devontae Adams, they should have a monster game. And even if they don't double team him, they're gonna have to deal with Odell or deal with Van Jefferson. I'm not making the same mistake I did last time. I'm gonna have all of them in my lineups, double stack them, and ready to go for Matthew Stafford to probably have the best game of the season, hopefully, potentially today, and run him there.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. On paper, you're right. That's an awesome matchup there against Baltimore, who's been absolutely shredded in the secondary. Their secondary is depleted. They want to get Cooper Kupp with the 2,000 yards. I know Beckham was talking about it. The team's well aware of it. I don't even know how much they would play next week of these guys. So they're in the playoffs. 82% to win the division. I don't know if they're going to win it today. If they win today, it's a 1:00 game. West Coast to East Coast, and they're going from a dome to outside in Baltimore. If best case scenario, it's got to at least be cold, I assume, in Baltimore. That's like my little concerns, but yeah, Stafford, and because everybody's playing today, Grant, like all these guys are going to be low owned. Stafford, we're looking at, I'm scrolling down. Well, 7%, is our projection. Mahomes 6.7, Brady at 5.6, Kyler at 4.4 just seems too low. Huntley, we assume Huntley's going to go instead of Lamar today. Nobody's going to play him at 4.3%. We have the running quarterback, another one, Taysom Hill. Burrow at 3.3% on DK, which seems low coming off of last week. But, KC defense has been good. But obviously, Grant, those are like, two of the more appealing games. Talk about the Arizona-Dallas game, the Cincinnati-Kansas City game. Of course, salary's a thing, too. It's tough to make some of this stuff happen.
I have 5 quarterbacks on DK. All
right, well, let's play the game, Andre. Let's pick his 5 quarterbacks. Let's do it. I'll take Lance first, obviously, and you go. Let's name off Grant's quarterbacks.
We said Lance. I'm gonna say Josh Allen.
Nope.
Oh wow.
All right. We need that Family Feud sound. I want to say you gotta have Mahomes. Yeah, Mahomes. Yeah.
Dean's 2,
right.
got 2. Andre 1, go.
All right.
Lance doesn't really count. You gave it one away. But
I like this guy. I forgot to mention, but I think you got him in your player pool because of the matchup, and this seems like a great play. Justin Herbert.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
That's right, open 2.
I like Herbert too.
Yeah, honestly, it's the Dallas game. It's Murray and it's Dak. Like, you're not getting any higher upside on the slate outside of Mahomes and Allen. Like, you do pick and choose your spot, but it's a beautiful game stack. It's one of the few places on this slate there where I really like to correlate. I think this could be a 60-point game. I think this could be one of the highest scoring games of the year. I think it's getting a little bit too overlooked right now because everyone who wants to spend up, like they want to spend up for Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. So going down a little bit to Cooper, to Lamb, like Dak just put up a massive game, and Kyler just really hasn't been Kyler for a while there. But we forget that this guy was the best fantasy quarterback, at least in the league, like the first 7 weeks of the season.
He was the MVP. He was the MVP. Like, he was the big favorite to an MVP, like week 7, week 6, whatever it was.
Yeah. Man, it was the same thing at the beginning of last season. Like, now he gets a match versus Dallas. Both these teams actually have decent defenses, but the pace should be good. Like, this should be high scoring. I love those two guys. And then, you kind of mentioned him briefly. Why is no one playing Huntley?
Oh, I'm playing Huntley today.
Because you're a smart guy. But
because there's so many options is why. Like that.
Yeah, I get there's options.
And also it's hard to pair them. And then you don't have to pair them, but it's hard.
No, it's easy.
Andrews' price.
It's so easy to pair him. Yeah.
Yeah. Because what
Andrews?
Name 2 tight ends that name 1 tight end besides Kelsey and Andrew that's likely to get over 10 points.
Ertz.
Not that likely.
Kittle. Gronk?
Not that likely. I don't know if he's going to get more.
Well, I
than
mean,
4
I don't know how
targets.
you define likely, but yeah, I like Andrews too. It's just he's really expensive. Fanduel is the most expensive tight end. DK is the most expensive tight end. I think he's the most expensive guy in Yahoo as well. Like, again, fully justified. He's been awesome.
We're not tight ends trash this week. Like, you pretty much have Anderson and Moreau. And
it's not that it's trash. It's just that there's no good values. Like, there's a lot. You have all the good ones. No,
there's trash.
Andrews
Like,
and Kelsey and Kittle and Gronk, they're all good. They're just expensive. And
Gronk's,
because we have no salary savers.
Yeah, a lot of them are overly expensive. Pitts is too expensive at 5.9K.
Yeah.
Gronk is too expensive. Ertz is 5.2. Schultz is actually a decent value at 5K. He was the other one I was going to accept. But, like, Kittle is far too expensive considering his role. Like, tight end's not good this week. You either pay up or you get Moreau or Anderson, in my opinion. Like, that's
I just think that, look, I wouldn't call it trash. It's trash trying to find who to play at tight end. That is trash. But, like,
what's the difference?
The amount of guys that score tight end this week score well will be greater than almost every other week this season so far.
Yes, no, it will, because we have 28 different starting tight ends.
Well, I'm saying, but putting context to it, it's not trash. There's actual real good players, just that you can't play them because they're too expensive.
Yes.
And we're all going to play Steven Anderson.
I'm not talking about their trash players. I'm talking about tight end this week is trash. Talking about the position, talking about the pricing. So my 2 favorite things to do on this slate is pair Mahomes with Kelsey or pair Huntley with Andrews. Like, that's by far my 2. Everyone's going to go Kupp. Everyone's going to go Taylor. They're going to try and spend up for those guys. So my different way of spending up is going with Mahomes and Kelsey or with Huntley and Andrews, and then you throw in a third player, and then it's basically those 3 have to outscore Trey Lance and Kupp or Taylor. It's that simple.
Let's talk about running back. We got to move on for the sake of time. The most highly projected running back we have right now, as far as ownership on DK, specifically by a hair, is Sonny Michel at 24.9%, then Ronald Jones at 24.6%, then Montgomery at 22.6%. Of course, the best option, if salary was not a thing, is Jonathan Taylor. 9K on DK. He's 10K. I believe he's 10K on FanDuel. Precisely 10K on FanDuel. Kupp is 10.5 on FanDuel. FanDuel not messing around with those big boys. Of course, you can still kind of get them in there. It's not that hard. Andre, give me the rundown as far as your stands at running back. I hate that I love Montgomery so much. He's gonna be super chalky, but it feels like that Giants team is just, they're done, man. They have no interest, man. They're out. And Montgomery checks every single box you want in a running back these days. Yeah. Your thoughts as far as RBs?
Yeah, I'm trying to get more Montgomery. It's just hard for me to get him right now with everyone else I have ahead of him. I'm really getting over on the one guy that I feel should be played in like almost every single lineup, and that's Jonathan Taylor. Why is no one playing this man? Why is he only 15% owned?
Because there's no value.
He's expensive.
I don't care. I'm gonna fit
that.
him.
That's exactly why.
I'm fitting him in. This guy might be the MVP. Might be a second close, if not MVP of the league.
He might be the MVP, like Mitch Trubisky.
He's the DeMar DeRozan of the NFL.
Yes, I love that expression. Perfect analogy. But like he's Jonathan Taylor by far. Like I'm gonna be over the field on him. I think he's a phenomenal play. I understand we have Devin Singletary, who I think is also a good play. I'm gonna be over the field on him too. Ronald Jones. We already know what to do with Ronald Jones against the Jets. As long as he doesn't get hurt, like James Robinson did, we'll be fine with him. He'll be a smash play regardless. But yeah, these other guys like Jonathan Taylor to me is someone I want to get over the field on. Eli Mitchell over the field on because I know they're going to run the ball a lot. Joe Mixon in that game because he's getting more of the pass catching work again in the backfield is someone I definitely want to get over the field on for sure. Another guy too. I know he's expensive, a little bit expensive. Only 5% on though on Alvin Kamara. Come on, we know what this guy does. When he has Taysom Hill coming back, that's the whole offense right there. Just them two guys. So to me,
also Mark Ingram probably not playing too.
He's out. He's already he's out. He's not playing this week. So getting over the field on him is a priority for me, and trying to use that to my advantage. There's a lot of good running backs this week. This might be a 3 running back week. I'm leaning.
I think it is.
I'm leaning more towards that. I don't want to go 100% like past weeks I have, but I might do it maybe. But it's just tough to Austin Eckler, another good one. And then we didn't even get to guys like from the Patriots, like Damian Harris, another 5% owned guy who's going to get majority of the work against Jacksonville.
We're looking at less than 10% for Eckler, by the way, which again, that's just a salary. He's kind of expensive, and I'm looking forward to hearing your value plays. You said to have some wide receiver, and I need some, man. I'm willing to listen. I don't know how to make this stuff work. But I'm curious. Sonny Michel, that backfield should be him, all his for the Rams today, basically. Henderson's out. They're going to bring back. I can't think of the rookie's name. Not the rookie. The guy that tore his Achilles. He's not coming back just yet.
Akers.
Thank you. Grant, your thoughts as far as running backs? Again, like Taylor, spectacular. If you can get him, by all means, have at it. CEH, of course, is out for KC, so Darrell Williams is pretty interesting as well. The plan for DeAndre Swift, I don't understand this, but allegedly it's like he's going to go as is and be their workhorse this week and not play next week. That is the thought process. That's what's been floated out there by the coach there from Detroit. I don't think anybody's playing DeAndre Swift, but like in theory, he should be playable. And like, I don't know if people are playing him or not because, what is their incentive to play him? But I guess that's the plan. He's going to play this week as is, and he won't play next week. And the other side of that game, I think Penny's kind of. I never play Penny, Grant, but if there was a time with this, Pete Carroll cannot wait to run the ball 40 times today against the Lions. He's salivating at the thought. What do you have as far as running backs, Grant?
I have 7 that I am playing, and they are in fact the 7 chalkiest running backs.
Oh, chalk donkey.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite 2 are Williams and Swift. It's just so easy. Like, they're pretty close to direct pivot. Well, I mean, Williams is a direct pivot off of Michelle. Like, he's a perfect pivot. I mean, with no CH, like that, Williams could put up 30 points, and there has been like 4 or 5 times this season where, like, I might do a 4-person Kansas City stack, which is wild stuff.
On a 14-game slate too. That's a lot of KC.
I mean, but it's Kansas City. It's worked out well many times. They're going to score a lot of points. There's got to be a lot of. It's going to be fun,
year.
Huh?
Like spending up on Kelsey and Hill and Mahomes has like not been the nuts this year as it is. Like it's had a couple weeks for sure, but like
yeah. It's been like 4 weeks. It's literally happened more than any other team in the league outside of maybe the Buffalo. There was against
Rams.
Yeah, more than
Cowboys?
the Rams. Wait, how? Yeah, Cowboys have been trash a lot of weeks. The Rams have had a few weeks, but realistically, you're going a full-on stack has not been it. Week, what is it? 13 against the Raiders, where they had like 500 yards of total offense. 2 weeks ago versus the Chargers. Like they've had a lot of very high scoring weeks. Week 1, week 4, like there's been a lot. But
they're
of times,
expensive. What they have, their goals to hit are greater than others because their price tags are higher.
Yes, why Stevenson comes into play.
Oh boy, yeah,
yeah, which is tough
because
tight end.
Wait, was that was Steven Anderson? Is that Steven? That's who Stevenson is?
Yes, Anderson, Stevenson, as I said. Yeah, it's been a long day. But yeah, back to running backs. Like Williams is a fantastic play. Swift is a fantastic play. Other than that, I'm just eating chalk, and I'm going to be well over the field on Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, trying to think who else is kind of sort of somewhat interesting. Harris, I think like just the matchup against Jacksonville looks really, really good. Of course, his issue is he doesn't catch the ball, but also, it seems like a spot where he can go for 102, and who cares if he doesn't catch the ball at all. Ronald Jones, that's mostly his backfield there against the Jets. Like just a lot of potential blowouts. We've mentioned Montgomery. I think Singletary for Buffalo, he's been getting a greater share of late, and again another spot where looks like a potential blowout in paper against Atlanta. Andre, is there anybody else off the board as far as running backs you think is worth mentioning? The Arizona situation, I thought it could be interesting if Connor didn't go, but it looks like they're optimistic. Of course, you won't know that until later that Connor is going to be playing that game against Dallas. I did think it was interesting that the Cardinals already won. They're already in the playoffs. Their chances of winning the division are minimal, like 18%, and their chances of getting a bye basically non-existent. So, why push him if you don't? I mean, what is the upside basically? And that's kind of my thought in that. But I don't know. If he's fine, he's fine. But he's been dinged, of course. You got anything else here, Andre, as far as running backs? You think we should put a spotlight on?
No, not really. I'm gonna name two guys that just because for namesake, and I think that they can be used in tournaments, I'm probably not playing them. I had them on my list earlier to be played, but I had to cut some guys because I have already a lot of running backs to begin with. But Michael Carter, he's going to be a pass catcher in the backfield. Is a good one. And then someone that no one is playing today that's a spend up that is getting healthier as at the right time of the year is Ezekiel Elliott. He might be in store for a big game. I'm not playing him today, but he's someone that can possibly go off today.
It's interesting you mentioned Carter because we're looking for value, but like nobody wants to play a Jet. This whole stench of the Jets. But like in theory, he should be okay. He should get a decent.
It's not like 5,100 is not. I mean, you can spend $300 more to get Devin Singletary, who's in a much better matchup. That's a problem.
Sorry, Agbunawale. That's basically his backfield there now for Jacksonville. But again, it's just a terrible matchup. Burkhead, we saw, he had a monster last week, but of course a little bit different here on the road. Big time dogs at San Fran. But yeah, there's really not much else to get excited about. If one of those Denver guys were to sit, but that does not appear to be the case. So it looks like both Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon are going to go. All right, Grant, let's move on and talk about receiver. I'll let you open it up. And, you're not going to tell anybody anything new that Cooper Kupp is awesome, but it's just a matter of like lineup construction, how you make it work. How much are you making sure to have a certain percentage of Kupp in your lineups today?
Whatever happens. Like
what does
that's
that mean?
I mean, I don't have a ton of interest. Like Cooper Kupp's a good play. I think as of right now, I have about 20% of him. Like he's not a huge priority. He's a great play. And in fact, like over on Yahoo, I got a lot of it because it's easier to do. But the fact that I'm paying up for Mahomes, Dak, Murray, like makes Kupp a secondary priority to Jonathan Taylor. He's one of the best plays on the slate. Do not get me wrong. He's one of the best plays on the entire slate.
Sure.
But I am prioritizing some other guys and other stacks because I don't think people are going to do that. They want to play Kupp, they want to play Taylor, but Kupp gets more of a priority. So just based on ownership, if he ends up with a 25-point outing, not going to kill me. So he's fine. He's good. He used to be my neighbor, but he's not the guy that I'm prioritizing. The guys
Like
I'm
next
prioritizing.
door or like miles away? How close was he?
4 miles.
Yeah, that's not a neighbor. You're not borrowing sugar from Cooper Cup, but he's 4 miles away.
Same school district. Yeah, so like the two guys I'm really prioritizing are Hunter Renfroe and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like these guys are going to be largely forgotten, and they're fantastic plays. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown has 11 plus targets in the last 4 weeks. He's been crushing it. He's a stud. They're going to feed him the ball. Swift coming back hurts him a little bit, but I'm getting him at sub 5% ownership. And Hunter Renfroe has been one of the best wide receivers this season, still without Waller. People don't like to run against Indy. Renfroe could really, and Indy's been worse at giving up fantasy points to tight ends and slot wide receivers. Like I think Renfroe has a monster day today, and no one's going to be playing him. So those are the two guys that I'm really prioritizing.
He used to be one of those guys that like nobody considered had a ceiling, and like that hasn't been completely true every single game, obviously, but it's also his price is adjusted.
He's turned into Michael Thomas.
Like, well, I mean, come on.
Oh, that's high.
That is hyperbole, Grant.
Okay, actually, no. Michael Thomas right now, he's better than.
As a safety, that's blasphemy.
No, he's not going to get like massive.
He's better than Jerry Rice right now too, but that doesn't say anything.
No, I just meant from a fantasy perspective. He's going to get massive volume. Like I know the last 2 weeks haven't gone great, but he's going to get massive volume. He's not going to have huge gains on any given play, really. Like I don't even know what his longest receptions are this season, but like just sheerly based on volume, I'm trying to think of a good comparison to him, and I really can't.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, there's no sense getting bogged down and derailed in that. Andre, give me your thoughts as far as receivers. By all means, talk to me about Cup and how much you're prioritizing that, and of course that's going to ding the rest of your lineups. There's still plenty of other options out there. Antonio Brown on DK is 6.1K, which like he was 4.9 last week, so I guess they increased his price. But still, what are we doing? And now he was injured or not practicing. He hurt himself in practice, but he's supposed to be good to go today. We'll see. He's 8.5 on Fanduel. Fanduel not messing around with Antonio Brown. Was he 8.5 or 9.5? I can't remember. He's like the third most expensive receiver over there. He's super pricey. Your thoughts here, Andre, as far as receivers?
So he is 8.5 on FanDuel. Good thing I'm not playing much over there. I might not play over there today. But anyway, I like Antonio Brown today. I think he's a good play. I think he's like if they say he's playing, he's playing. He's healthy, he's gonna be a full go. And Mike Evans is gonna be limited too. So to me, Antonio Brown's in a fantastic spot to get a lot of the work. So I'm gonna have a lot of exposure to Antonio Brown today for sure. I'm gonna go to the cheapies since that's what people want to get to.
Yes.
I'm playing Braxton Berrios, but I'm not. I'm like I don't really. I mean, he's perfect for the lineup because as a last piece in, that it's probably gonna get you like 13 to maybe 15 fantasy points. So, to me, that's perfectly fine, especially in tournaments. If you need a last piece fill-in, but the one guy who I really do like getting to that no one's gonna be on. Is Zay Jones, who's opposite of Hunter Renfroe out of that game. I know he's going to be playing along the outside a little bit, but I hopefully they'll move him around a little bit. We got Edwards coming back, I think, off the COVID list too, so we don't know how much game shape he's going to be in. But I think Zay Jones is just my pivot that I found that I know was getting a lot of targets off of. So he's my pivot directly off of Braxton Berrios in that price range. So I like getting to him a lot today. And using him as a low end option to switch off of Braxton Berrios, and then obviously you go up to a little bit more. It's about $1,000 more, and go like in a Michael Gallup range, who obviously is going to be very popular today. But even though I even like into a little bit of Jacoby Myers. And AJ Green, get into the 5K range as far as low end wide receivers. But people are also overlooking Odell Beckham and Van Jefferson. I know we like Cooper Cup a lot, but like I think I mentioned this earlier on the show today, but like Odell and Van Jefferson might have monster games just because they might double team Cooper Cup. They're not. I'm pretty sure the Ravens are tired of getting beat. by one receiver every single game. But Joe Burrow did it with all three of them. So I don't know what they're gonna do. They're just getting up all over the place. So I would not be surprised if Van Jefferson or Odell have a monster game. And I think we should definitely have at least double or triple the exposure to them for sure, especially at their low ownership. So to me, I'm getting a lot of them. I love the Amon St. Brown call that Grant made. That's one of my favorite sneaky plays on the slate too as well. He's quarterback proof at this point. No matter who you throw out there to throw him the ball, he's going to catch it. He's someone that can remind me a little bit of Michael Thomas, I would say, because no matter who's out there, he's just catching the ball. So I think that he's a fantastic and fine play today, as well. Another guy that I like getting to. I just want to see how he's going to look as far as with. So I think he's coming off of a hamstring injury a little bit. Is Mike Williams. I like taking from him in tournaments. I know he hasn't been great of late, but it's still worth a shot. It's still worth a shot, especially going against Denver. And they have been depleted a little bit with their secondary because of COVID and injury. So I kind of like trying to take some shots at Mike Williams today if he's going to be that low owned and is completely healthy and fine. Other than that, that's it. Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp. We already know what he does. Like, just play him. I'm going to have probably try to get at the field of him, but I'm playing more so Jonathan Taylor to be a little bit different. I don't like Debo as much, or I don't like really any San Francisco wide receivers as much. I'm going to have a little bit exposure to them, but it's just hard to get to them just because of just because I don't trust Trey Lance passing the ball as much. So other than that, yeah, that's just really it for me.
Last chance to get your questions in. We're going to get to them momentarily. Again, get them at rotogrinders.com/Discord, the live stream chat channel. Devin is compiling those. That is a free channel. That is not a premium channel to join the Discord there. 2 questions for you, Andre. I have 2 players I want to throw at you. Cortland Sutton, really, really cheap. He's like the stone minimum on Yahoo. Maybe he's like 11 or 12 bucks. 4 or 5 on DK. He hasn't done anything like in 2 months, and he's coming back from COVID. And then the other one is Brandon Cooks coming back from COVID as a run back in that San Fran game if you're playing some lanes.
I like Brandon Cooks today, definitely for sure. Cortland Sutton, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want to take that chance today. It's a 14-game slate. Sutton is I know he's gonna be the one to get a lot of the targets, but at 5-1 on DK, it's not a bad price. But I don't know if I want to take that chance today when I have other guys I can pivot to. I think that can get me there. Like, I'd rather go to Jacoby Myers if he plays today, or Gabriel Davis, or Van Jefferson for 200 more. So those are my options instead of getting on Cortland Sutton in a better game environment. Even though I just don't trust Andrew Luck to try to give him the ball either that much.
For the sake of time, Grant, we got to knock out some tight ends too. I know we kind of touched on tight end, but we do have to have that conversation to some degree. Knock out the questions from chat as well. Give me like 30 seconds or a minute or so as far as your favorite receivers. Anybody you vehemently agree with, disagree with, go for it.
Very high on Amon-Ra St. Brown, very high on Renfro, playing a decent amount of Cooks. Kupp, obviously fantastic. Berrios is my spend down, which I hate. Very heavy on Cooper and CD Lamb. Going over to tight ends, I have, I think, 4 or 5 in my player pool. It's Moreau, my favorite tight end, followed by Kelsey, followed by Andrew, followed by Steven Anderson, and then Schultz I have a sprinkling of.
Andre, are you playing some Steven Anderson chalk? I assume he's going to be pretty chalky. We're looking for value. We're begging for value. He's 2.5K on DK. He's the last tight end standing there for the Chargers. They're without Cook. They're without Parham. He should be the guy, presumably. He's a converted wide receiver. Is that something you're in on, or you're going to be different there as far as tight end? Again, there's some good players playing tight end. It's just hard to play them because of salary.
Yeah, I'm playing him today. I'm playing him mainly, and then trying to get some Foster Moreau. They're probably my top 2, but then I got sprinkling of the other guys like Andrews, Kelsey, Kittle, Gronk, Knox, Ertz, Gobbert, and Higbee. I like Ertz a lot. I'm trying to get more exposure to him as it gets closer to lock, honestly.
The depth chart for the Chargers, Trey McKitty and Hunter Kampmoyer. The other tight ends. I've
Great
never heard
names.
of.
Great names.
I don't. Those are both awesome names. So
McKitty, I've heard of multiple times. He's got 2 catches on the season.
Okay, so you've heard of him each sketch, I suppose.
Well, the first catch, like caught by McKitty. I'm like, gosh, great name. Next time, caught by McKitty. Great name. Can't fault him here.
All right, questions from the chat. I'm just gonna kind of bounce back and forth between you two. Andre, you're up first. Are we stacking Davis Mills today? Are you making a Davis Mills stack?
No, that's a great question though.
Grant?
I am not, which it saddens me, but I'm not against it. Just, yeah, if I were playing over on Super Draft today, I'm not. I'd be playing Mills.
You playing Cooks by himself?
Yeah.
Grant, thoughts on Debo for tournaments? Obviously,
too expensive.
4%. I mean, that's 4%. That's the reason why you play him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to argue with it, but in terms of spend up, he's fairly far down my list.
Andre, we're looking for cheapies. DK tournaments. Thoughts on LaVisca? I mean,
no, you're reaching.
We saw Marvin Jones get a lot of targets last week, but he's hurt me so much this year. I mean, I'm trying to make Marvin Jones happen, but I'm looking for cheap players. I don't know what to do, man. Andre, GPP thoughts as far as CJ Uzomah on DK, like, cheap way to get a piece of that game. It's pretty appealing.
I mean, you can do it. The likelihood of him succeeding is not high, but in a deep tournament like a Millie Maker type thing, it's fine.
Grant, once again, what were your 5 quarterbacks you ran off?
Lance, Murray, Prescott, Huntley, Mahomes.
Andre, Erik wants to know if you like a Raiders onslaught, Jacobs and Zay Jones.
I like Zay Jones. I do not like Jacobs today. They're not. Indy's pretty good against the run. When they do an attack, I'm more so in the air.
Grant, Flores Mark for DK tournaments. I love David Montgomery and Joe Mixon. Thoughts? Do you love Mixon and Montgomery as well?
I love Montgomery. Mixon's fine. Like, just didn't get to too much of him.
DK Cash, if you had to pick between Kupp and Taylor, who would it be? The answer is Kupp, because the running back value is better than the receiver value, and you knock out one of those receivers. And the running backs we talked about, the mid-tier running backs is actually really good with Montgomery and with.
I currently have more Taylor than I have Kupp, I believe.
Okay, that was a Cash question for. I was just thinking.
Oh yeah, Cash for 100% Kupp.
Yeah, I think you play Kupp. Do either one of you guys? Do Andre and Grant have picks they like on Underdog? You guys playing Underdog today? Anybody have Underdog picks?
No, I can't play Underdog props in Colorado.
Andre, thoughts there? No,
I don't have any.
This is a player we didn't mention. Any Jarrett Patterson? He's got that stench of being on Washington. Only guy left in the backfield for Washington. Well, I think they still have Williams, right?
Yeah,
Williams is still there.
Yeah,
I have one share of Jarrett Patterson, and I'm not happy about it. It's just the only thing that will fit.
He's in my pool as well for the same reason. I'm not excited about it. Let's see. Brandon Cooks with Lance and Debo run back. We just kind of touched on that. Let's see. A couple more before we step aside and get out of here. Make way for Ben and Erik. They're going to give you guys a deep brain conversation regarding the slate. FanDuel, this is for you, Grant. FanDuel tournament best low owned stack. Give me a low owned stack on FanDuel.
Is KC low owned?
Yeah, they definitely gonna be low on there.
Reasonably, yeah.
KC.
Hill's not, for the record.
Go with Kelsey.
Hill's, yeah, Kelsey's going to be not as nearly as owned as Hill.
Go with Kelsey Williams. You can stack Williams with Mahomes. Williams can do a lot of work in the receiving game. You
have a favorite game stack or team stack, Andre?
Over on FanDuel, low?
Anywhere, just on the slate in general.
Anywhere. I'm gonna go Arizona today.
Like it.
Yeah, do we like Braxton Berrios? I think we like him like begrudgingly. Like I hate that he's gonna be like that's
he's a begrudging pick, but you have to he makes everything work.
He's not somebody I want to attach myself to. Like, what's his ceiling? Ugh. But yeah, I'm playing him too, man.
Ceiling is 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's my outs. All right, we got to go. We got to step aside and make way for Ben and Erik. Do appreciate y'all hanging with us. Do not go anywhere. You're probably going to get Beermakers fan 6-pack in between. Certainly some winners in there. All right, I think Joe Burrow as his God. What does he call it? This main guy. What's the term he uses? It's
Galaxy Brain? I don't know.
No, it's like a beast of the week. There you go, because a beast beer, which is delicious according to Grant, I imagine. All right, hit that like button. Don't go anywhere. We're taking you guys all the way up the lock. That is Andre. That was Grant. That was Devin. You heard Devin's voice. At least I did. That was football. Enjoy the new year. Enjoy your football today. Take something down. Win some money. We're out of here. Holler.
Take it.
You're back at the Fantasy Bar for week 17 with 6 plays for you on Fanduel and Draftkings, including a couple running backs I think are too cheap out there, a couple secondaries I want to attack with some pass catchers, a quarterback tight end pairing I'm eyeing this week, and of course, my favorite play of the week. Who we talking about? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Week 17 edition Beers Daily Fantasy 6-pack season cruising right along here. Only a couple weeks left. Jam-packed slate here on Sunday, and I've narrowed it down to 6 of my favorite plays on Fanduel and Draftkings. Thank you, as always, for stopping by and checking out the video. Now, before we get into the plays for week 17, couple things. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Get notified when these videos are coming out. Multiple football videos a week. Got this one. Got a Yahoo video as well. 6 more plays I'm looking at. Over there, you can utilize a sports betting video and NBA videos each and every week. So make sure you're getting those videos right to you. Subscribe to the channel. Also, if you're enjoying the content, you enjoy the videos, all I ask in return, hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. Helps us out tremendously. Last thing, head over to scoresandodds.com/beer for all of your sports betting needs. Tons of information, analytics, premium picks as well. If you don't have time to dig through the data, let us do it for you. Check out that link in the description of the video. All right, let's get into the plays here for week 17. Again, most of the games on Sunday here, so a 14-game main slate should be fun here on Fanduel and Draftkings. Let's start at wide receiver, guy I'm really liking this week, Jalen Waddle of the Dolphins. But Waddle continues to be a monster in this offense. Targets galore here. We're talking 10 or more targets now in 5 of the last 7 games. 36 receptions over the past 4 weeks. So just really racking up the catches. Has also found the end zone in 3 of the last 4 games. Miami's gotten very creative in how they utilize this guy. We saw it in that last game, getting end arounds, getting the ball in his hands. He is a playmaker in all areas of the field. And this matchup just doesn't get much better here. Tennessee has allowed the most receptions to wide receivers, the most receiving yards, and of course, that's equated to the 2nd most fantasy points allowed to this position. Prices on the rise here, but with good reason. This kid is a stud and going to be a big part of my lineups here in week 17. All right, let's get to the running back position. Promise you some guys I think are underpriced. Let's start in Chicago with David Montgomery against the Giants. Now, maybe not the sexiest name out there, maybe not the best offense, and maybe not the most marquee game out there as well. Low total in this game, but hear me out here on David Montgomery. We know this guy gets a ton of work. So basically, you're getting a workhorse type running back, but we're not paying those big prices that we have to pay for some of those other guys. And I'm not saying Montgomery belongs up there in the Jonathan Taylor tier. What I'm saying is, give me this amount of touches at this price any day of the week. 28 touches last week against Seattle, 26 catches now over the last 4 games. So very valuable on a DraftKings. This guy's pass catching game has really improved. And whether it's Justin Fields, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, does not matter to me. I want David Montgomery here in this spot. Chicago, rare home favorites here, but they are 7-point home favorites. We love that for our running backs. Giants, bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed to this position. So again, this game kind of ugly. Most people will cross it off. Don't make that mistake. David Montgomery, the guy you want here against this New York Giants defense. All right, let's go to the tight end here. We're going to go with Dallas Goedert of the Eagles. It's kind of foreshadowing where we're going next, but we'll start with Goedert here. It's the matchup ideal here. Washington has been terrible against all pass catchers. We saw this matchup a couple weeks ago. Goedert, 135 yards in that game, 7 receptions on 9 targets. So clearly a matchup that he could thrive in. And we know the tight end position in general, very much boom bust. Goedert certainly fits that bill as well. There's always some risk with these guys, but we've seen the upside here in 2 of the last 3 games of late. So I feel very good about his upside in this matchup. Once again, we just saw this matchup, and Washington bottom 10 in receiving yards allowed to this position here. Seems like Washington has cashed it in here. Philadelphia still a lot to play for, and Goddard, one of the better playmakers they have in the passing game, going right back to the well here this week against the Washington football team. So we like Dallas Goedert. That's right. We love Jalen Hurts as well. Our next play here in the 6-pack. So another guy that tore up this Washington defense in that last matchup, almost 30 DraftKings points for Hurts in that one. And Washington has really struggled with quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts. 3rd most rushing yards allowed on the season to the quarterback position, and the most rushing touchdowns allowed. Now, Jalen Hurts put 2 of those on the board just a couple weeks ago against this team in Washington. Not only they give up rushing production, that's going to generate a lot of fantasy points. That has them at the absolute bottom of the standings here as far as fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position, and it's not even close. They are getting tore up. We mentioned in the Goddard analysis, Washington seemingly has given up on this season here. Still something to play for Philadelphia. I think Jalen Hurts, another big day in store here for this Eagles offense. All right, let's go back to the wide receiver position. Another secondary matchup I'm looking at here is the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to go with Odell Beckham of the Rams. Now, obviously, Cooper Kupp, a premier play each and every week. I don't need to tell you to play Cooper Kupp here, but I do like the other receivers here for the Rams. Really like Odell Beckham. We saw what Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase did to this Baltimore secondary. The week before that, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. I think the same thing is going to happen here with the Los Angeles Rams, led by Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and of course, Odell Beckham, who has found the end zone now in 3 of the last 4 games here. 10 or more DraftKings points in each one of those games as well. So you're getting a decent floor here with Odell. You're getting targets. We know the big plays are still there with Odell Beckham. And we mentioned the struggles with this Baltimore secondary. 3rd most receiving yards allowed to this position. 4th most fantasy points allowed. So if you can fit Cooper Kupp, have at it. I don't hate the double stacks either. If you can't get there for some reason, I think Odell Beckham, one hell of a consolation prize against this awful Baltimore secondary. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for week 17. Before we do that, we want to continue our Beast of the Week contest. Free to play, easy to play. A thank you to you guys for hanging out here in the Fantasy Bar.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to week 17, not the final week of the season, one more week, but week 17 GPP final takes here on Rotogrinders. As always, I am your host, Erik Beimfohr. You can find me on Twitter at Erik Beimfohr. I am joined by the wonderful Ben Gretch at Yards Per Gretch on Twitter, and the author, I guess now for the rest of the year, the somewhat retired author of Stealing Signals. Now that you're done with the regular season for Stealing Signals newsletter, but if you go to bengretch.substack.com, you can still subscribe to Ben's newsletter where he breaks down every fantasy relevant player. And as we get to this point in the season, I've been saying this for a while now, but we're getting to these crazy end of year slates and understanding all the nuances of players in, players out, right? We have a little less COVID stuff going on this week, but still plenty of injuries and all of that to monitor. Real quick before we dive in, there's going to be a lot of, these types of conversations, especially as inactives roll in. If you are watching and you have any questions or you just want to kind of hang out in the chat along with the show, we are in Discord. So if you're watching on YouTube and you're wondering where is I'm usually talking to these people in the YouTube chat. Where is everybody? We're in the free Rotogrinders Discord. You can go join in, follow along with the show, follow along with everybody else in the chat at rotogrinders.com/Discord. And we are in the live stream chat channel for this. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. Ben, I'm not even going to cut any corners. The very first, we were kind of talking about it before the slate starts. Normally it's like a run, there's some crazy underpriced running back or some weird situation. To me, the starting point of this slate is actually at the quarterback position, where we get my guy, the guy I've been rooting for all year, and now is gonna be relevant in the championship week. Trey Lance at quarterback for the 49ers. Jimmy G is supposedly out today. We got word from, I believe, Schefter last night. And this slate is a little bit tricky kind of to navigate, particularly if you want to avoid Trey Lance. It's a weird way, your roster construction really changes, right? And so in turn, that drives up Trey Lance's ownership. He's obviously projecting really, really well. We know about his rushing ability for 4,800, and he's facing the Texans. So he's a really kind of like the starting point for me in tournaments as to when I start that lineup. It's like, okay, normally I'd be like, what games am I attacking or how am I leveraging something? It's like, am I playing Trey Lance or not on this team is actually the way I'm kind of starting to think about lineups today. Is that kind of how you're feeling? And in general, how are you approaching Trey Lance in tournaments?
Yeah, I think absolutely how I'm feeling. I just pulled out one of my earbuds. Absolutely the place to start. I people who have watched every week know that I play a lot more on DK, and I've been really struggling with DK this week. I mean, last week we talked a lot about the low price running backs. You had sort of this anchor. Most slates you do, like, okay, how are you going to play the running back value? Do you want to get up at the ceiling at receiver as a result? And we saw some of those types of lineups be the ways to go in the end. We weren't very on Burkhead. We did talk about playing him with some of the other cheap running backs, and that ended up being like a fantastic way to attack the slate. This week, like, I feel like there's not a clear, value cluster at any of the positions, right? There's not like clear options. And so getting up to the real ceilings that exist, like most of the real ceilings are priced in. They're more expensive at running back and receiver and tight end, is really challenging. And to build like a smart correlated lineup and come in at low ownership. Now, like anytime it's challenging like this, it creates opportunity. Anybody who has, especially if you have somebody like, this is one of those weeks where if you have somebody that you really believe in, that's like a 3K player, and you're like, this dude's going to be the guy this week. I mean, there's a lot more. I think that's an easy pitfall to run into when you're building lineups on most slates. There's a lot more justification for it this week to just throw in this one off that you want to make that bet on that guy because it just frees up so much. But to the same point, Lance, if you want to make a lineup that actually has a lot of players that have done things this year that you think have actual ceilings, that project for actual ceilings, you almost have to start with Lance, which makes it so challenging. Because a lot of people are going to do that, right? And then the question is, do we stack him? His receiving prices, his receiving pieces are all priced up because they've been catching passes from Garoppolo and much higher projected pass volume situations than what we're going to have projected this week. And so they all look like bad values. So I think skinny Lance is going to be, basically naked Lance is going to be very popular this week. I'm playing some tournament lineups that don't have any Niners with him or even any Texans bringing back, which feels so wrong. It's just like a cash game quarterback play.
Right.
But he can obviously get there, even if it's a low scoring game with 60 rushing yards and a couple of touchdowns. I mean, even just one touchdown at his salary. And if the rest of the lineup goes off. So it is the absolute, fulcrum that the whole slate, hinges on. How you're playing it starts with Trey Lance.
Right, which is crazy to think about, right? I don't think we've started a slate this year talking about what are we doing with this quarterback, right? But he has I think it's important to talk through because this isn't just like, you remember Gardner Minshew? We had Gardner Minshew week where I don't think either of us were super interested in Gardner Minshew in tournaments, and he did okay. He scored like 17 or 18 which for $4,000 was great, but he's a pocket passer, on a really run heavy team. Obviously the Niners are also run heavy. But Trey Lance's best attribute is running. Like that's what he does. He dominated college defenses by running. He's like a freaking linebacker that runs a 4.4 at quarterback, and he just so happens to be able to throw the ball really far too. So so he's this all-star, this superstar quarterback prospect. And that creates, as we've seen with, maybe someone we'll get to in a second, we've seen with Tyler Huntley in the past. We've seen with even Justin Fields, right? Even when those guys don't necessarily throw the ball that well, when you run, you can the floor is so high and the ceiling is absolutely through the roof, right? Tyler Huntley, the second game against Green Bay a few weeks ago, he was okay passing, but he ran for 2 touchdowns and like however many yards. And he was the highest scoring quarterback on the entire slate, even though you watch the game, it's like, oh my God, this guy's not even very good at throwing a forward pass, but you just run and you get into a game environment, or you're facing you're in a matchup that allows your offense to score a bunch. You're just naturally going to score like a certain number of fantasy points. And like with that kind of upside, that also leads to, right, like he could run for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He could account for 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game. I'm not saying that will happen, but like that's what makes him such a difficult fade, right? The Gardner Minshew thing, or like even honestly, Josh Johnson kind of worked out last week, but like that situation, it's kind of like, what can he really go get 35 and like bury me? Probably not. But Trey Lance can do that. And so I think most of the time, these situations, I would be like, nope, like you're going to get like a 20 or 25% owned quarterback. It's like, dude, just play anyone else. And I do think that is certainly viable, but I think I almost feel like sometimes we should treat him, particularly depending upon the contest that you're playing in, as like one of those cheap running backs, maybe not the Alexander Madison week, right? Madison against the Lions or whatever it was for 5,500, but it's not that different. It's like, he's actually not going to get so owned to like, if he was like 60%, right? If you get like a 60% quarterback, it's like, okay, I'll take any one of the other guys. But what are we talking about here? 20%? Maybe. I think that's what we project him for. Most places are projecting him around 20. There's still 80% out there for these other guys. So you play a 10% guy that's 7,500, right? The situation is very different for a guy like him. So I'm not going to play 100% Lance, to be clear, for me personally, but I'm also not avoiding him in tournaments. And I am personally probably playing him naked, because I do think the value thing that you brought up with his other guys, I think is a very, very, very tough ask. And his ceiling comes from running. And so, and again, to be clear, if you have not watched the show before, I focus primarily on smaller field type stuff. And so I don't need to hit, I'm not trying to win the $20 Millie Maker. We might be having a different conversation for that, but for me, he's still very open to me. Go ahead.
Yeah, to that point, I think if you're going to play a larger field thing, then stacking him, I think, becomes very viable, because if you do want to play him, there are routes to one of, especially the way that the Niners kind of play, they're pretty concentrated to one of those 3 receivers that are their main guys, kind of getting the bulk of the receiving work, or maybe Lance just throwing more than we expect or whatever. Like I kind of like doing it with Kittle to fill that tight end position. You get some real tight end ceiling. I think there's still a lot of tight end ceiling with Kittle. He does so much after the catch. He would have to catch a touchdown, at least 1, potentially 2. I don't think he's going to have an 8-9 catch game today, but he can get there on like 5 or 6 and be the clear top tight end on a slate if he gets in the end zone and gets some yards after the catch efficiency along with it. So those are some things you can do definitely in large field. If I was playing a more large field, I'm also obviously playing small field. I think I would be fading Lance more. I think what you just said, though, also in small field for the people that are playing that, it's going to be very popular, right, to play naked Lance. And so you have to be intelligent with the rest of your lineup. But it does kind of free you up to go anywhere, right? If you're not playing him correlated with him stacked, the rest of your lineup can be a lot of different mini correlations that are going to naturally sort of differentiate your lineup from the other Lance builds. There's nothing, obviously, that, the whole slate's open to you, right, when you're playing a sub 5K quarterback. So,
and that's where we'll definitely get to that, right? Like, how do I build a Lance team that makes sense in tournaments, right? Because I'm playing this 20 or like you said, depending on the field, you might get the ownership might run away from you a little bit. We'll see when we flip over the cards in 2 hours or whatever. But how do I make a Lance team, right? There's almost never a play, even a guy that might be overowned. And maybe someone says, oh, I think Trey Lance is overowned today. There's almost never a guy that you can't play in tournaments, right? Particularly at quarterback. It's like, it doesn't matter that much, the position, they're like the guys who are good plays that are going to score 15 to 30 points and, we win elsewhere. Right. And so no one is generally a bad, like a guy you cannot play in tournaments, but it's like, what do it's lineups, not individual players, right? These are just chess pieces we're moving around. So we did our Lance thing. The part of the reason to me why Lance is so appealing is that quarterback's pretty tough this week. When you look at like the quote unquote best plays, right, they're pretty much like all expensive, which really starts to hamstring your lineup, because like you said, there's not a ton of appealing value. We'll definitely get to some gross guys that we'll talk about, but there's not a ton of appealing value, and the really high ceiling plays are all pretty priced up. Again, we'll get to Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp and those guys. But I don't have any other quarterback where I'm like, oh my God, absolutely got to jam this guy in. He's just like a total smash. I'm trying to make sure I pull up ownership.
Huntley comes in cheap enough that if you're going, like, if you're looking for a reasonably cheap pivot off Lance, Huntley has shown the ceiling. The pass rate's been there. That Baltimore LA game is going to be popular, but I think he's going to be a popular stack. But I do like going to him as like an alternative that's still reasonably cheap. I've built a number of different iterations of Huntley lineups. I can't really get it to
800 more on DraftKings.
Yeah.
800 more to be clear, which is like nothing in the grand scheme of things, right? So you're basically building the same team as a Lance team, but with a similar player, much lower owned.
Yeah, but it is. I would actually almost dispute that it's nothing, because like this week that 800 can kind of hamstring you. There's not enough value that you can reliably get down to in the, like, you know, at running back. Like you start to get down around 5K. Like there's not a lot of guys you want to play. Do you want to play Dare and Gulbawale at 5,100? Like
no.
I'm thinking about it. He's got a 12 team total. Do you want to play, these receivers that are available in the 5,000 range? I don't want to go all the way down to Braxton Berrios. I know a lot of people are going to play him. He's looking like a really chalky play. Not sure what the ceiling is there. His target spread run have always been pretty strong. I just like with a low A dot, it feels like you're just playing in a chalk without a lot of ceiling. And so that's a challenging one for me. If it makes the rest of a pretty unique lineup fit, I can see it, especially if you're correlating it on the other side with somebody on Tampa Bay that makes sense. But that's what he's going to be. That's why he's going to be played a lot, is people want to play someone from Tampa Bay. They want to correlate it. But yeah, it's challenging as you get down into the 5K range at running back, at receiver. I think Steven Anderson's going to be a popular cheap tight end.
Yep.
Because he's been priced and the Chargers have their other tight ends out. And so those balances are tough. But yeah, Huntley, I like actually going right back to the Andrews stack, because Andrews is projecting to be very low owned and looks like kind of a tough value. But I mean, this dude's been absolutely smashing. You can get some legit ceiling, similar to the Kittle thing. Like if you can find a way to pay up for these tight ends, those guys can be just must haves. They can have such big weeks that it's like you had to have them. You had to have a way of building around them. So for me, it's like at tight end in the lineup I'm building, it ends up being either Steven Anderson or maybe like CJ Uzama from the Bengals, or it winds up being Andrews with like a Huntley stack.
Yeah, we'll get to a couple other tight ends that I like, but you mentioned one like quarterback and stack and situation that I really wanted to bring up, because we are just a few weeks removed, right, from we would show up every Sunday and you would be like, okay, Tom Brady's throwing 4 touchdowns. Which guy are we playing? Who are we playing of his skill guys? Because that's what happened. That's literally what happened. It was typically happened to be Leonard Fournette catching 2 touchdowns every week, right? But so Chris Godwin, obviously, RIP to the God, is out with a torn ACL. And we got word that Mike Evans is going to play. So to be clear, Antonio Brown and Mike Evans are both active today, but we got word that Mike Evans is going to be active, but like play on a limited basis. And so to me, we have this situation where Tom Brady is, they had the Saints, just disastrous game, right? Lost all of his guys and they're facing a good defense, just a total disaster. Last week, they're facing the Panthers, who are actually a pretty good defense. And the Panthers offense is so bad, they don't put up any sort of a fight. Keyshawn Vaughn has a 60-yard rushing touchdown, right? And so Brady doesn't really get super pushed. AB had 15 targets, right? AB did what we kind of expected him to do. But now they get the Jets, and we have this Bucks offense that, like, everybody, people aren't off Antonio Brown and Gronk, to be clear, but people are definitely not playing Tom Brady, right? Why would I play Tom Brady when I can play Trey Lance for 4,800, right? Or Josh Allen for 8,000. But like just a month ago, we were playing $7,600 Tom Brady in maybe worse spots than this, right? We would play him against the Bills or something, and their defense is quality. The Bucks should, in theory, name their score today against the Jets, and it's much more consolidated now, right? Godwin is out, Evans is limited. You have Antonio Brown and Gronk, and I guess Tyler Johnson. We'll talk about the running backs later, but like, I don't see why the Bucks aren't like just a total smash. And if everyone's going to play the receivers, if they're going to get there, Brady should be throwing for 304, right? So he was a guy that jumped out to me with ownership and situation and everything.
Yeah, definitely. I think. Sorry, I was looking at some stuff. You were talking about specifically Gronk, right?
I love Gronk. Yes.
Yeah,
Gronk, now he's going to come with
sense.
ownership.
I
right?
agree with everything you were saying broadly on the Bucks. I think Gronk is the really easy ownership play. Yep, I completely agree with that. I mean, obviously Brown is. We got all the narratives with Brown, and he's such a easy one to like from like a targets per out run perspective, and Evans being limited. Like last year, Brady literally did this, made sure he got all the catches and stuff he needed to hit those incentives. I'm kind of buying that a little bit. I'm like,
I know.
Dude needs these numbers, and Brady did it last year. And every time he's active, his targets per route are just out of control. And he's going to run a lot of routes because Evans is banged up, still. So I like Brown too. I don't know if I'm in love with him. He was seemed to have been legitimately banged up this week. So maybe this isn't the week. Maybe next week's the one where they really go after the bonuses for him. Gronk is such a natural pivot. Like last week didn't go right. All the targets went to Brown. And so people are not going to play him. But we absolutely know that he can get double-digit targets. He gets air yards as well. He gets the red zone looks, has a tight end ceiling 100% at low ownership. So I'm all over that too. I love that.
Yeah. And, if you're doing something like that, that's what team does maybe a Braxton Berrios team fit into? It's like, well, okay, if I'm betting on the Bucks to go absolutely bonkers here, right? Particularly through the air, maybe the Jets are actually pushing them a little bit. Okay, now you have I love your, you mentioned on both sides. I love these situations where you have these two target dominators with targets per route run that are like really, really good. Obviously, AB is like otherworldly, right? And Braxton Berrios is low key pretty good. So like if we're forcing both of them to run more routes, like you have this really consolidated targets on both sides. So
the other way to play into it and fade Berrios and all of that and get Bucks exposure, obviously, is to play Ronald Jones, who does project reasonably highly, but I don't think he's really going to get, he didn't have a big game last week. People are not really high on him. I don't think he's really going to get steamed up. No. And he's a dude that I still very much believe, especially against the Jets, if they run away with this, they might just make this a Ronald Jones game. And if they do, absolutely has 152 touchdown type upside. I mean, we talked about last week, we were talking about how Damian Harris had the multi-TD upside a little bit better than most of these other backs. He ends up getting 3. I would say that Jones is that back this week that has a better chance for multiple touchdowns than I think most, especially at his price, than I think most people in the field are going to account for. Like you were talking about just playing some Bucks regardless, they're going to score points, right? And so Jones is a really nice way, even eating some ownership, to basically fade the other good Bucks plays and say, look, he can score 2 touchdowns on the ground and have 100+ rushing yards pretty easily, in my opinion.
And I think we talked about this last week, and I think it came to be fairly true. Rojo is just a guy that people can more easily talk themselves off of than into. And everyone sees the same ownership projections and everything, right? And they're just like, am I really going to play Rojo as the second or third highest owned running back on this slate, right? I can just play Antonio Brown. Like if I really want to play Bucks, I can just play Antonio Brown, right? And then we'll get to some of these other running backs. There's Sony Michel, there's David Montgomery, there's JT, there's all these other guys. So people will Rojo just never gets steamed, right? People don't like him. And I'm not even saying you should like him, but he's just one of those guys that, so again, I agree with you. He's a guy that I really, really like today as well. Particularly, he's the Damian Harris type back, the Ravens type running back, where it's a little more fitting for FanDuel. Rojo is just never really going to get a ton of work in the passing game. And if you're playing on FanDuel this week, make sure to go and sign up for the DFS OGs FanDuel contest for NFL Week 17, and you get to play against Beermakers fan, Head Chopper, Noto, tons of other RG users, and people like me we will be in there. I don't hold a candle to those guys, some of the best to ever do it in the DFS space, but make sure and go and play in that contest. Devin will drop it in the chat for you. So real quick, I want to touch on a couple of other quarterbacks, and then we'll pivot over to running back, because running back is a fairly kind of interesting conversation this week. We have Josh Allen projecting for a good bit of ownership. Hard to really say anything bad about Josh Allen against the Falcons. We know what he can do on the ground, through the air, whatever. The only issue, obviously, is that he's $8,000 on DraftKings. Again, talking about FanDuel, I think, FanDuel being a little bit looser, you can do stuff with a guy like Josh Allen a little bit more if you want to. It's really, I don't know. I tried to build some Josh Allen teams. It's really tough to make a Josh Allen team, especially if you want to do any form of correlation or anything like that. So I'm struggling with him. So maybe that makes him actually a better tournament play because it's hard to fit him. A couple of other quick ones. Dak, if I actually do want to get your take really quick on Dak and the passing game here. They went super pass heavy last week against Washington. Obviously, that game was over in about 10 minutes against the football team. The football team has totally quit. And Dallas just boat raced them in the first half. Dak basically scored 30 fantasy points in a half. What is your, like, if Dak and the Cowboys are going to continue to do that against the Cardinals, who in theory should be able to put up a little bit more of a fight, Dak at 6,700 as the third or fourth highest owned quarterback looks really, really appealing to me. What's your expectation kind of read on how the Cowboys are going to play and are they going to keep up the pass rate, blah, 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 all that?
I like the Cowboys to kind of keep up the pass rate, and I do like this game. For me, I've been playing it more as minis. I've not been playing a lot of Dak. I mean, he hasn't been fantastic. They're favored. They have a strong team total. There's a lot of reasons to like it. An afternoon window, right? Yeah, it got moved to the afternoon window. I mean, yeah. It actually is interesting. I probably should be playing. I really like Chase Edmonds. It seems like more and more like James Conner might not play, and so now I'm thinking Edmonds is going to wind up getting a little bit steamed here. But he's a guy with a little bit of a salary discount that you can get to, and it would make for a nice bring back if you were to play this game through the Dak side. I mean, you can also play it through the Kyler side. I mean, this is a very interesting game for sure. There's a lot of different ways to play. I guess that's part of the reason I'm getting off Dak. It's hard to pick who you want to play. I think Gallup is a nice value. Schultz has obviously been involved more these last couple of weeks. I like Lamb to have a ceiling week at some point. Amari was a squeaky wheel last week. That could just frankly mean that it's Amari week again this week. It could also mean that at some point Lamb has his 15 target game again, like he did, he has a couple of times. I keep thinking back to the New England game where he came alive in the second half, had the overtime game winner, had 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, we know that he has that ceiling. So I'm playing some like Edmonds, Lamb correlations where I can fit them in some of these Lance lineups. That's something that I really like. The Dak side of it, I mean, it just seems tough with the pricing at quarterback to get up to any of these really high priced quarterbacks. I mean, I know they have monster ceilings. Dak doesn't offer the same rushing as Allen. Like if I'm getting up, I kind of want to go to Allen, right? I know he can also add so much with the rushing and really gets 40 points and really extend away from where Lance can get to reasonably. Dak, to me, I don't know if he can create that much gap between him and Lance because he really doesn't run as much as as we sort of assume.
No, he came in right to the league running. He was a really good runner in college and good athlete, right? And he wasn't actually running a ton last year before he got hurt. He was just getting some rushing touchdowns because they would fall behind by 30 points every week, and he would go superhero mode. And then obviously, he dislocated the ankle, and he really hasn't been the same this year. Not like from a real play, but like in terms of running around and moving around. I would argue it. I don't want to say it made him better, not to go on a football tangent, but man, just his IQ and the way that's part of why I really like this team is so fun because Dak is he's like a baby Brady back there. He looks awesome. He makes the right decisions almost all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely play him. I mean, God, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3-touchdown games already. Like that's the upside is like the Brady 3 passing TDs. He's done that 6 different times. Dak has done that 6 different times already this year, including last week he had 4. So the rushing isn't that crucial, but it's just kind of tough to afford, I guess. That
game is a perfect example of what you kind of outlined earlier on, how do we attack this slate? What I would call it would be like kind of like scenario based, right? Like we do, game stacking and that kind of, this is the absolute perfect example of a game that makes for a good tournament game stack, right? And I think you can play Lance and stack this game. In my opinion, you can, you can do things like that. That's what makes Lance really just such a tough fade. But this game is like, okay, Dallas defense has been really good. And people low key kind of miss that, I think, because their totals are always high. Dallas is really good on offense. you need Dak to get pushed, right? You go through that game log. The reason why he doesn't have more of those 350 and 4 games is because they're winning. It's because their defense is shutting people down, right? The Giants can't score on them. The Eagles can't score on them. These teams can't score on them. And so Dak doesn't have to do anything in the second half to really go crazy. But so if you need him to win a tournament, he needs to do that, right? And so how do you do that? Well, Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds, right? Zach Ertz, those guys need the offense from Arizona needs to be pushing them. Kyler, right? They need to be pushing these guys to make Dallas continue to stay aggressive. They're like my favorite team in terms of making sure that I'm correlating. Like I would never, ever in my wildest dreams right now play like a one-off Amari or a one-off CD or anything like that, because it's not that they can't get there. It's that you really need the Cowboys to get pushed here. And then they can, right? CD can do that. As we saw, the Patriots push them. Look what happens.
It's
right?
not
150 and 2.
It's not concentrated enough for a one-off either, right?
Yep.
We were talking about so many options. Like one of the one-offs that I really like that's just sort of out of nowhere in some of my lineups is Jalen Waddle. Like we know that with Miami, like even if that Miami-Tennessee game is really slow, Waddle can be the guy that is the only one on the box score that pops, right? That has 10 catches and 90 yards or whatever. And it's like, okay, I still got there. Even if the game doesn't go nuts or anything. And so there's guys like that make a lot of sense because you're like, yeah, this guy can just be their only offensive player that makes sense for fantasy. That doesn't happen with Dallas particularly frequently. Nope. There's going to be other guys in the box score, to your point. They need to be pushed. It's not likely to be a game where just, Amari has 30 points and no one else does anything.
Just not how they play offense. Yeah. So funny. It's funny you mentioned that because a theme I'm going to get to in a second. I want to hit a couple of some good questions in the chat, but the Waddle thing is so perfect on these tougher slates. One of my favorite things to do is like, maybe that game isn't my favorite game. We'll get to, I like this also in the Colts game. Maybe that game isn't my favorite game, but like on each side, there's like one or two guys. That's the offense. Where else is it going? Right. So I'm not projecting the game to blow up, but you can get bailed out, even if it could be a 17-14 game, but it's so condensed on both sides, right? Like you said, the Dolphins have scored 14 points and Jalen Waddle could have 35 because it all goes everything goes to him, right? The Titans also happen to have a guy on the other side, AJ Brown, who I don't have to tell you about, who can do the exact same thing. Exactly. Right. And so I love those. So you get the upside of, okay, if the game does blow up, like those guys bury you, it's over. If the Titans score 35 points, I promise you, AJ Brown has buried you. like that's just how it works. Cause he gets 50, he's going to get 40 or 50% of the targets. On the flip side, even if it's 17-13, like he can still go 8 for 120 and 1 and like be an absolutely awesome smash play. Right. So those are some of my favorite situations to target.
It's really funny this week because we're starting to get into like the Waddle and AJ Brown stuff. I think are a little bit off the radar, but we're starting to get into some plays that are fun to make, and they're like we kind of started by saying like it's a really challenging week to fit everything in. And it also feels like there's no one to play. I mean, there's no one to play in the cheaper areas. I want to get a lot into my lineups at the more expensive areas. I would love to get more AJ Brown into some of my lineups, or even like a Brown Waddle correlation. But like you look at the slate from like a big picture perspective, we talked about the Bucs. You probably want to have some exposure to them, but they're expensive, right? It's not easy to do. We talked about the Bills a little bit and Allen's upside. We talked about the Dallas Arizona game. I think the Kansas City Cincinnati game, which we haven't touched on a lot, it always feels a little bit wrong to not have some Kansas City exposure or even some Cincinnati exposure. Like that can be a low scoring game. We have seen that. You can play it that way, certainly. But it does feel a little bit wrong to not have any exposure to that game. It's from a salary perspective, it's tough to get to all the offenses that make sense on this slate that look like they're in spots where they're going to succeed. And so I'm having a hard time just like figuring out which offenses basically to fade, because with, a 14 gamer like this, there's just so much there.
Yeah, that is, I don't even have to add anything to that. I couldn't say it any better. There are a couple of those games, right? Chiefs, Bengals is one, like you said, that we haven't even necessarily touched on yet, that like everybody can see the appeal. It's not hard to see Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce against particularly what the Bengals did last week, which I think honestly, part of my take and why we haven't even touched on it yet is because they don't project that well. The Bengals, nobody in that game does, which maybe does make it a little bit better for tournaments. But I think there's almost certain to be a little bit of recency bias. Like T. Higgins was unowned last week. T. Higgins has been unowned, honestly, for like weeks now. Jamar Chase, same thing. Joe Burrow was like, people won tournaments because nobody was on these guys despite a good matchup. And I didn't play him either. But now, like, T. Higgins goes for 40 and Joe Burrow goes for 40. And, you know, the Bengals, the team that we've been begging probably every Sunday to be like, please throw. Like, this matchup is just throw the ball. You're such a good passing team. Please throw. And they would never do it. And then they do it last week. Even they're up by 40 or whatever with 2 minutes left, and they're Burrow's chucking seeds down the sideline. Right, he threw like a 50-yard pass to Mixon with like 2 minutes 2 minutes left. And
so now the Cowboys too, like, and now you want to play both these offenses this week.
We've been begging you to do this all year, and then you see it, and you're like, oh my god. That's it, right? Because we see the upside. That's what we've been waiting for all year. And so I think, honestly, the Cowboys, perfect. I'll throw them into the same bucket. Is like, we've been waiting for this, and they've been honestly not doing it for us in fantasy all year. And we finally saw it. And so now this week we're like, oh, look, the game looks great. Those are two of the best games, if not the best two games. So look, I saw the upside. I'm going to play them. When in reality, like, I know that, like you said, Dolphins Titans doesn't sound very fun. It actually sounds quite gross. I don't even really want to watch it. But like, there's only a couple guys that do anything on either team, right? And same thing for well, again, no, I said I was going to get into some of these questions, but the Colts Raiders is one of those, and that's a super gross version of things. But like, obviously Wentz is back, just in case anyone missed that. Wentz got activated because COVID doesn't really exist in the NFL anymore. Wentz is back. And, you know, he throws basically to Michael Pittman. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor is, you know, the second best fantasy asset in all of the NFL. I really like the Raiders defense stinks. And no one on the Colts is getting that much ownership. Obviously, JT is going to get his. Michael Pittman always gets a little bit of his. But like, it's those two dudes mostly. Somebody asked about TY. I can't do I mean, if you want a game stack and like toss TY onto a Wentz stack, I think that's okay for large fields, but I'm not super interested. Again, mostly smaller field stuff for me. But this game, the other side, you have, I mean, I guess maybe Zay Jones is part of this, but like, you have Hunter Renfrow, you have Foster Moreau fills the tight end position, and like, that's like it, right? And in theory, the Raiders should be able to score a little bit of points here, you know. And so it's a similar situation to that Dolphins Titans game where you get these guys on both sides of a game that people are like, Colts Raiders. I'm not interested in that, but it's really condensed on both sides. And there could absolutely be points here. So that's another one similar to the Waddle, AJ Brown that I really like. So now I want to hit a couple of questions because we got, 20 minutes or so left. FanDuel Cash. I'll hit the cash ones. FanDuel Cash, Diggs and Sony, or JT and Jacoby Myers. It's definitely the Diggs and Sony side for me. I saw somebody right before we started that I think the guys before us mentioned, if you're playing cash, this sounds crazy. It's hard to wrap your head around. I totally get it. But Jonathan Taylor would be the guy that I think is a little bit easier to forego in cash, solely because there's a lot of running backs much cheaper that would allow you to get to the Diggs, the Cups, the elite tight end, or however your build fits. Because there is, again,
it raises the floor of the whole lineup is what you're saying.
When you just get Sony Michel's going to play like 100% of snaps today. It's like, so like, his expectation is certainly not Jonathan Taylor, but he's going to play every snap for a really good offense, right? Darrell Williams is going to play a shitload of snaps for, pardon my French, for the Chiefs offense. David Montgomery, same, opposite, not a good offense.
Trade-offs guaranteed targets at receivers. So for the lineup as a whole, you're raising the floor by making that trade-off.
Exactly. Now, in turn, we're going to get to some tournament. This is largely a tournament show. That's what makes, to me, Jonathan Taylor actually kind of a fascinating tournament play, because we're going to get his offensive line is back. He's like not that, he's cheaper than Cup, and like Debo's almost the same price, which is kind of crazy. And like, he's not going to be that owned because we have all these other running backs. So we'll get to JT in a second. Somebody else mentioned I would do Sony. No Jalen Hurts. I actually think Hurts is a totally reasonable play, because again, you have a great matchup, running quarterback, totally unowned, with stacking partners that are, it's two dudes, right? Play Goddard and cover up your tight end position. We saw what Goddard did to this defense just a couple of weeks ago, broke the slate in like, it was over. I closed my laptop in a half hour because I didn't have Dallas Goddard against this team. So I actually kind of like the Hurts Goddard stack. How would you rank? I got this question for you, thinking, I know this person, so thinking from a tournament perspective: Darrell Williams, Sony Michel, and Rojo. How are you thinking about those guys for tournaments?
I'm playing a little bit of all of them. It kind of depends how I'm building the lineup. Sony Michel obviously coming in as the sort of mega chalk,
yeah,
and it's hard. It's hard not to play him or want to play him, because we know he's going to play every single snap. We know this is a really good offense. On a slate like this where salary's constricted, like I feel good about the floor he has, and then being able to differentiate elsewhere. So I'm willing to buy into that chalk a little bit. Same with Rojo to a lesser extent. He's a little more expensive, but I'm willing to buy into a little bit of chalk there. Williams feels like he might get a little bit, overlooked. He's especially on DraftKings, he's the exact same price as Michel, and I think people pretty clearly prefer Michel in that one-to-one. Williams is a really interesting way, I think, to get to Kansas City exposure. At the same time, Michel's, I think, clearly a better play. Like, he should project better. But if you want to differentiate your lineup a little bit, I think getting to some Williams makes sense. I do have some lineups. I was just, while we're talking building a lineup right now, it's a Williams Rojo lineup because I don't have, that's sort of the range that I'm living in, and it's maybe not right, but I want to play some, actually, now that I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is going to be too chalky of a lineup. But anyway, I think those are good plays. It's just tough to fit everything, right? So they make a lot of sense from a salary perspective. I'm willing to eat that chalk. I'm not willing to eat the Montgomery chalk as easily. I'll say.
The perfect pivot into the running back discussion, because I feel like we say this every week. David Montgomery is a totally reasonable price, projects well because he plays a huge percentage of snaps. He catches passes, right? But and again, same thing I feel like I say every week. He's probably going to have a good game. He's probably going to put up a solid fantasy score. But on the Bears offense, Andy Dalton is starting. That game is hideous. That game is maybe the worst game of the entire slate, on a slate that has some bad games. And like, his value in some of these weeks has come from the fact that they're losing and he's catching passes. Yeah. Now we have this super gross game. Okay, he grinds out 4 yards a carry. Maybe he gets in the box. Maybe he even gets the bonus. He just, in tournaments, is the guy that is like almost never going to bury you, right? We're never going to get Darrell Williams has a 30-plus point fantasy game. I know that's like hard to believe. Darrell Williams, just a few weeks ago, he did.
Just look at the team totals. I mean, that's a big way to place that, I think.
Right. The Rams are going to score like at 25-plus points. Same thing for the Chiefs. They're going to score. The Bears, the matchup doesn't matter. They could kick 3 field goals.
They could score 17.
I mean, and so like, I get it. He projects well. If you want to play,
he's going to get a ton of work. Yeah. I'm with you. Exact same thing. And the note on his receptions lately, they've been a huge part of his ceiling over the last month. Every single game in the last month, they've trailed by at least 10 points in the second half. The first 2 were 10-plus point losses. The third one was that Vikings game where they scored on the last play on Monday night or Sunday night or whatever it was. They scored on the last play of the game to lose by 8. And then this past week, they came back from down 10. They ended up winning against Seattle, but tons of extra play volume as they were actually succeeding in their comeback mode. But to your point, like, they're not probably going to trail against the Giants. I mean, I don't know. They're favored. They both teams suck, but like, if they're favored now and ahead, you're not going to get the same ceiling receiving that you've been getting. He's a pretty easy fade for me. The other one is Devin Singletary's looking like he's going to catch some ownership, is a little bit cheaper, easy to play, nice way to get some Buffalo exposure. I want nothing to do with it. I don't feel like there's like a huge ceiling for Devin Singletary ever. He's had a couple rushing TDs these last couple of weeks. Typically does not have a lot of touchdown equity. I mean, I think that's just boosting his ownership for this week, basically.
Yeah. We talk about it in the offseason all the time, which is fitting because it's championship week for everybody. Shout out to anybody that made any championship games of anything season long, best ball, whatever. We talk about it in the offseason all the time. Like, what do I get if I'm right? Right? Like you're my favorite quote that you have is like, I'm looking for the small loss, big win type guys. Right. Yep. And that applies to DFS too. It's like, if a guy has even a small loss, can I still make money on this guy? Right. But then in turn, can he provide me with a big win? What does a good Devin Singletary game look like? Is it winning you GPPs on a 14 game slate? Absolutely not. Is he ever running for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns? Can he do what Damian Harris did? No, it's just not, it's absolutely not happening. And that's how I feel about David Montgomery.
Like, best case scenario, he's good enough to be a part of the winning puzzle, and you're then able to differentiate at the other spots because he's going to be in enough lineups that, like, okay, cool. Like you might see him on
Yep.
some winning teams, but like he wasn't a good play still.
Right. It's just because he did well enough. Maybe the position sucked, right? Maybe JT didn't do anything. Montgomery didn't do anything. And so his 16 points or whatever, like, was fine.
5,400 was fine. Yeah.
I'm playing guys because I want them to be the reason I can win. Like, I want all the guys in my lineup to be like, you can win me this tournament, right? Because then I just have so many outs to winning a tournament. It's like, if everyone in my lineup can win me it, that's why you mentioned Braxton Berrios earlier. It's like, can Braxton, like, I tagged Braxton Berrios earlier in the week. It was early because he was projecting for like 1%. I'm like, okay, well, I can run him back on buck stacks at 0 ownership. We're talking about chalk Braxton Berrios. We're talking about chalky Devin Singletary, chalky David Montgomery. It's like, dude, these teams might score 7 points. You know what I mean? And so those are the
just go down to Rex Burkhead and play him again, who no one's playing, and he's cheaper than Singletary, and actually showed us a higher ceiling last week than I think Singletary had. Singletary, I just looked it up, 10 career touchdowns. He scored each of the last 2 weeks with rushing TDs. Those are his 9th and 10th of his career in his 3rd season. You're not getting multi-touchdown upside here, and he's going to be overplayed for sure.
And you need it this week. Another thing to, like, from a macro perspective, you need like real upside this week, right? We talked about, there's Cowboys, Cardinals, Chiefs, Bengals. We have Sony Michel is cheap. Darrell Williams is cheap, blah, 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 right? You Antonio Brown, the list goes on. You can't skate by with a bunch of 13 to 15 point games. Like maybe on a really bad week, you might be able to do. I did want to hit before we moved off of Darrell Williams. I have Darrell Williams tagged in lineup HQ as a conviction play. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like even when we get this Chiefs situation, it's like people don't value the running back on the Chiefs. And I can never figure out why. They project for 1 million points every single week. The defense has also actually gotten better. And so, like, maybe the game script never gets away from, or Mahomes is just going crazy, throwing the ball down the field all the time. Darrell Williams, like, is going to get, you talk about high value touches every week, going to get the goal line work. He's going to get receiving work. He has like crazy upside at like legitimately low ownership. But if CEH was the only guy, if Darrell and McKinnon were hurt or something, people would play CEH, but they won't do it with I get he's not like a really good real life football player, but like I feel like he's such a smash play. He's probably my favorite running back when we consider ownership and upside and all of that. I also like betting on Darrell Williams. If you go to BetMGM and use promo code GRINDERSBET, you bet $10 on. I've done this before. Like, pick a Darrell Williams prop, catches, rushing yards, you want to bet on a touchdown, you want to bet on receiving yards, rushing plus receiving yards. I just feel like he's really undervalued across all, basically any gambling market. And if you bet $10, you're going to get $200 instantly if the Chiefs score a touchdown. Spoiler alert, the Chiefs are going to score a touchdown. So, just bet $10 on Darrell Williams and you'll get $200 free dollars. All right, let's move. We have some questions. Sorry, I was trying to read through the questions, and the last comment is Berrios sucks. So you were much more clear and to the point, Lip, than we were, but I agree. Thoughts on Michael Carter? Do you have any interest in Michael Carter as a run back to maybe buck stacks as opposed to Berrios?
I think it's a reasonable play. He played a lot of snaps last week. I
ran for 100 yards.
I think he's going to get plenty of work. Thoughts are that I get it, and I could see him as a reasonable play. I don't think the upside is big enough against a tough Tampa Bay run defense, right? And there's going to be a little bit of ownership on him too, or it looks that way. He's not a play that I'm ultimately pulling the trigger on, but I get it. I mean, I honestly kind of get it more than Singletary, but I'm not making that move.
I would agree. I like him more than like a Singletary type play in tournaments, but I'm not super excited about it. I'll hit a couple of these questions, and then we're running a little behind. We can hit wide receivers and tight ends and kind of our last stack thoughts. If you had to pick one, AJ Green or Kirk, or I guess Antoine Wesley. I'm not playing Antoine Wesley. It's Christian Kirk for me, fairly obviously.
I like that.
Yeah. Let's see. AB, Gronk, and Rojo in a full onslaught. No, not for me. I think you're probably going to give up too much. Definitely give up too much projection, and I think ceiling just because of Rojo. The
Rojo path is not as much passing. It's more of a ground. I think you could play Rojo with one pass catcher. I wouldn't play him with two.
Correct. He's just not going to be Fournette, right? Where like Fournette fits into the passing thing. You know, he can almost be a James White, a much bigger James White in that regard. Somebody's showing Russ stacks. Russ is going out with the last Seahawks game.
I mean,
stack.
that's like, you can play it. It's a 14 teamer, go for it. But there's like, the thing is, you can play like the Dak stacks you're talking about at low enough ownership that you don't need to go play Russ stacks, you know?
Exactly. Somebody mentioned Jalen Hurts. Like, I can play Jalen Hurts at super low ownership instead of Russ. I mean, Kyler and Tyler Huntley, those guys don't
really good plays that are not, there's two, like, if you want to overstack a game and be like, this is going to be the game, like, that might work. You know what I mean?
Burrow is not popular.
I think in large field stuff, it's going to wind up being like one of those lineups that has a couple of one-offs, obviously, right? Because you're going to have to get everything right. But in small field, like, you can pick one of these games and you can stack some of these really good quarterbacks and get them at really cheap prices, honestly, because there's so many, cheap ownership, because there's just so many ways to play this slate. There's just so many ways. People are going to land on a lot of different things.
Perfect segue into kind of wide receiver, tight end, and stacking and finishing that up. I mentioned it earlier, but my favorite thing on these slates is, you know, we have a couple of games that I definitely like a little bit better, but kind of across the board, it's like good to meh. And then obviously a couple bad ones. We talked about Bears, Giants, which please God, no more Bears, Giants discussion. But you have these games, right? I mentioned probably my favorite is actually Vegas and the Colts. And you can do a bunch of fun things with that game at low ownership. And trust me, I no one feels more pain clicking Hunter Renfrow or Foster Moreau or something like that into a lineup than I do. But we have a situation where the Raiders, I know that I literally was making it. We were talking before the show. I was making it the lineup, and it's a stack of this game. But like Hunter Renfrow, people don't feel comfortable with it, has real upside. Like, you want to talk about like target upside, he has as much as anybody on this entire slate. We've like written off Foster Moreau because he failed as chalk, right? And I'm not super excited about him either. But again, a cheaper tight end who is not Steven Anderson, you know, and fits in some correlation with, there's two dudes on the Colts that if they're going to score points, it's two freaking guys, Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. So, and if you want to include Wentz or Derek Carr onto these game stacks, I absolutely think you can do it. You can also just play Lance, right? If you need that extra money, just play Lance and then stack this game, right? You just get because you don't even need touchdowns. You don't even, I mean, JT needs touchdowns, but the target volume is so high, particularly for the Raiders side, that you're just getting peppered with targets, and then Lance matches whatever Derek Carr would do. And like, you're absolutely golden. And same thing with we mentioned the AJ Brown, Jalen Waddle thing. I love those kind of situations. It's a little bit lesser in the Broncos Chargers because Mike Williams is back, but I would have said the same thing if Mike Williams was not playing, where you'd be like, dude, there's Keenan Allen and there's Cortland Sutton now, which it looks like he's going to play. As the only, they don't have any other wide receivers. It's like, so, you know, the game's gross, but who else is going to get the ball in this entire game? So I really like, that's like kind of my theme of this week. You know, we have the shootout games where it's like, I don't know, they got each team has 5 guys they're going to throw the ball to, or we have a little bit lesser scoring environments, but everyone is going to, like, it's all Hunter Renfrow, it's all Jonathan Taylor, it's all, you know, whatever, those AJ Brown, those kinds of situations. So those are my favorite this week as kind of my synopsis of wide receiver, tight end.
Yeah, I like some of those for sure. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I'm playing a couple of the Raiders bringbacks and getting some Taylor into my lineup. The other guy I would say, and this is, you know, you had moved on to a receiver tight end, but that I think is really interesting from a pure ceiling ownership perspective, if you don't get up to Taylor in tournaments, is to get up to Eckler and play him.
Yeah.
So, some of the Denver guys, I don't want to play any pass catchers from Denver, but I'm talking myself into Sutton a little bit. He's cheap enough. We know with Drew Lock for sure that he's willing to chuck the ball downfield more, especially to Sutton. Sutton's had some big air yards games with Lock in the past. Judy's out. You know, Sutton's splits with and without Judy have been really positive for him. I do think I feel like in most outcomes in this game, Sutton winds up with enough air yards that I can justify having played him at 4,500, even if he was a little chalky. The really nice way for me to correlate him is to go to Eckler. I also mentioned Steven Anderson as a really cheap tight end. You can correlate him that way. I mean, I've done that in a couple lineups just because I'm I'm not fitting anything. So it's like, okay, Sutton, Steven Anderson, nice little mini that's only like 7K total. But Eckler's the smart play. I think he's the one that fits with Sutton. He goes off. He has this multi-touchdown game, and then you get Sutton second half air yards like crazy.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense to me. I'm a little bit higher on Sutton actually than you are, but I think we've established that I like a lot of really gross plays over the course. We're in week 17, and I have mentioned a lot of really, really bad plays over the course of the year. So I feel a little more comfortable maybe than the average person does playing this guy. But it's just a ceiling thing, right? My expectation for Courtland Sutton today is not very good. Like if you're telling me to bet on something, it's probably not very good. But like when we see everyone else is out, and every other time when everyone else is out, like people are playing Braxton Berrios for $800 more than Courtland Sutton. You know what I mean?
I think it's just tough when you know what his floor is.
Yeah.
And you know Drew Lock sucks, and this whole offense ran literally 40 plays last week, fewest of any team in the entire season all year this year. No one's run that few play. I think the previous level was 42. They cleared it by a full extra play. Usually, like anyway, on the extremes, like you're not just like, oh yeah, we hit 10 plays a quarter. We were that bad. That floor is there, and you're playing into a little ownership. That's the scary part for me. Like you want to have a reason to play into ownership, and you want to feel at least comfortable that like you're not playing into ownership and then taking a 2, which I don't think we're going to take with Sutton, but it's a little too possible for me to not be a little scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. So two quick things I want to hit on really quick. We do kind of have like some updated ownership, and it's really interesting this week. And that's why I like some of the things we've been talking about. Like I know Hunter Renfrow feels gross. You're not excited about the Titans with AJ Brown or with Dolphins with Jalen Waddle, et cetera, et cetera. But like obviously Cooper Kupp, I hate the situations where the highest owned running back and the highest owned wide receiver are coming from the same team, even when I have as positive of outlook as I do on the Rams. And then like you look at, oh, that was Fanduel. I apologize. So from I guess it's the same thing on DraftKings. Both sides, Cooper Kupp and Sony Michel, the highest owned players. And like, they're not cheap, right? Michelle's pretty cheap, but like Cooper Kupp is not cheap. And so that allows me to kind of pick one, right? Like if you really want to invest in the Rams, it's like, just don't play both of them, and then stack some other, play Sony and stack some other game, right? If Cooper Kupp scores 25, you're fine. Like you're told it's the Montgomery thing. It's like, what do I win if I win? Like, well, if Cooper Kupp goes for 50, you probably wanted to stack this game because, you wanted Huntley and Andrews or whatever. But if Cooper Kupp goes for 25, even 30, like you're fine. There's going to be
I kind of feel like a lot of people won't play Michelle and Kupp together for that reason, though. That's actually something
that's fair.
That's a little bit contrarian is to, if you want to play into it, you could actually put them in the same lineup. But I don't know. Maybe that's wrong.
Yeah. No, I think you stack the game.
Yeah,
play Huntley.
Yeah,
Huntley, Andrews, and bring it back with those.
And bring guys, with both of those guys.
Yeah.
Is something
I think that's how I would do it if I were gonna do it. So we're about to wrap up. I think we hit just about everything. If you have questions that we did not hit, I apologize. Like some people were asking about Kirk or Odell, tons of that. The guys on Crunch Time will get you here in just a minute when we wrap up here, as we always do. We're running out of times to do this. Only a couple more weeks. You have to kind of conviction play something. I will lead off because we were kind of seemingly a little bit down on the Cowboys passing offense. I'm believing that the Cardinals are going to push them just enough. And I'm believing that the pass rate was a real thing that we're seeing last week. Zeke is so dusty. The Cowboys finally got smart and they realized they needed to throw the ball. And it's another Amari week, but this time they're going to be pushed all the way to the brink. His target rate was absolutely insane last week. I would like to buy into it with the ownership that we're seeing this week. If everybody was buying into it, I'd be like, okay, now give me CD. People are still going to jump to CD. Give me Amari. And then the other one is because I'm going to play Amari on these teams is the game stack of that Colts Raiders game. Those are the two things I'm very, very convicted about. Ben, what do you got?
I will. I mean, this is like the slate that I have the least conviction on any individual thing of the whole year. I mean, I think that's fair. There's 14 teams. Yes. There's a lot of things I could pick. I'll hit on one that we didn't hit on that I wish we would have. Manny Sanders officially inactive. Oh, yeah. I'll say Gabe Davis. I think Gabe Davis and Cole Beasley are both nice. Plus, I think you could even go to McKenzie and be like, oh, he's earned a lot, but he's earned a lot after his big game last week, and maybe we see that play out. He plays more than Beasley. That's probably not smart, but like large field stuff, I think you could be crazy enough to do that. Gabe Davis is the natural easy play off of Emmanuel Sanders not projecting for a lot of ownership, a little bit cheaper, and a nice way to get some Bills exposure. That'll be my conviction play there.
Definitely love that. Another good game stack coming in at fairly low ownership. Hopefully it's Kyle Pitts week. I need it to win $1 million this week. Kyle Pitts, one time, please catch a touchdown for the love of God.
Yeah, good luck, man. You got enough to sweat without DFS, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that is it for us. We will, of course, be back again week 18. It's been a chaotic year, and week 18, I can only imagine the shenanigans that we'll be talking about next week. Thank you guys. Crunch time right after us. We will see you guys in just a week, and good luck to everybody in their fantasy championships and obviously in DFS. We'll catch you next week. See ya.
Hey everyone, Nicole here with a video walkthrough of the Underdog Tools browser extension offered by Rotogrinders.com. If you don't have this extension installed, it's pretty simple. You can get a direct link, or you can go to the Chrome web store, the Microsoft Edge web store, or the Mozilla Firefox web store, and search for Rotogrinders and download the Underdog Tools extension. Once you've added it, it's browser specific. You go on to Underdog Fantasy, and there will be an extension option with the RG logo. We'll have this little logo. You can click on that, and you need to sign in with your RG credentials. Once you've done that, you'll get a notification saying that you've successfully signed in. Premium members will have additional content on Underdog now when they enter a contest. Those live under the Pick'em tab. So when you go to Pick'em now, just make sure you refresh the page and it picks up the sign-in credentials. You're going to start to see Rotogrinders projections. This is very handy for player props. We've got interceptions, completions, the rush yards, everything you could want here for NFL, NBA, and MLB so far. So you'll see these projections, and then you can start comparing the difference with the Rotogrinders projections and the actual prop line offered by Underdog, and decide which over and under picks you want to start making. Right, so this one's really close. This one is an over for us, those kind of things based on what we're seeing on the RG projections and the props offered. You can go by sport, or you can go to see all of them at the same time. So here's just NFL, just NBA, and this works on the over-under tab and also on the rivals tab. So under rivals, you're comparing two guys in a certain stat category with each other. So anywhere with the orange markings, you've got Rotogrinders projections active for them, and you're comparing that with each player. We hope this will make it much easier and quicker for you to go take our projections, compare them to the site's offerings, and then make informed decisions on what contest to enter and who to play. Until next time, this has been Nicole Valencia for Rotogrinders.com.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Crunch Time here on a what looks like some weather, some cold and blustery weather games with some rain in a couple of them. I'm Brit Devine filling in for Luch. Luch was scheduled for 3 shows today. He messaged me. He was like, "Hey, Brit, yo, I need a little break today." So I was able to fill in for him here with Tuttle and Kristi. What's up, Tuttle? It's like we haven't done shows in like 5 years together, and now we're going to put together all the time.
I know, it's fun. I'm trying to think how the NBA slate went after we did a show. I think it actually went poorly. So hopefully NFL goes a little bit better. I think I had too many Orlando Magic on the night that we did NBA.
What can go wrong doing that, right?
Right, for sure.
What's up, Kristi?
Hey, good to see you guys. Happy New Year, by the way, and good to start the new year off. Hopefully we can help win some big money today for all the people watching today. So good to see you guys.
Yeah, that's fun. If you guys are on YouTube, you can come join us for chat. It's not on YouTube anymore. It is in Discord in the live stream chat right below Chiefs Prop Shop and Blunder's Game Theory. The prop shop, I hang out a lot in there. Loving those prize picks and all the fun things you can do on that with props. But yeah, hang out with us in the live stream chat if you have any questions. Tuttle, you want to handle some cash chat here before we get to Kristi for tournaments, or who does what in this scenario here?
We kind of go back and forth. I'm cool doing whatever.
All right. I guess let's talk. Whoever wants to give some cash consideration talk. I guess let's start at quarterback first here. And I think on DraftKings, the consensus is Trey Lance. He's just too cheap. If you're at all scared, you can. Dak is a little bit too cheap on DraftKings too, but Trey Lance just fits everything. I was looking at the Blitz. The Blitz had him at like 37 rushing yards. I would gladly take the over on that. And if you add some more rushing yards into that, he looks like just the great play. And if you're over on Yahoo too, he's $20. What about on FanDuel? You don't need him on FanDuel, but if you want like the Jonathan Taylors and the Cooper Kupps and also have a couple other good players, you might even want to play him over there. So what do you stand on him right now, Tuttle?
Yeah, honestly, he's a lot of fun if you play on FanDuel, because you can do so much things with the rest of your lineup. Like you said, though, I don't think he's a necessity on FanDuel. He's clearly a better point per dollar play on DraftKings. FanDuel has that looser salary cap. If I'm spending up, though, it's for Josh Allen, and I do think Josh Allen is a really good FanDuel play, very good for cash games. And honestly, even on a slate like today, where we think Trey Lance is going to still lead the way in ownership on FanDuel, like Allen is an excellent tournament option still, even that 12% projected ownership. Like any other slate, he would be projected for more, but Lance is soaking up a decent amount of that just because he is so cheap. So FanDuel, I think, is between Allen and Lance, and then DraftKings, you mentioned it. I think you just go Lance in cash games.
I want to note the weather. So it's been snowing basically all pregame in Buffalo. I believe it's starting to taper off right now. Ross weather report, winds winding down by kickoff too, snow on the ground. All the ugly stuff is pregame. So if you were concerned at all on that, you can maybe take that. My favorite, on prize picks, maybe I'll talk that for the people. I like Kyle Pitts, 43.5 yards with no weather real restrictions in this game, going for all those tight end rookie records when they don't throw to Patterson or anybody like that anymore. If you're playing over on prize picks, that is one of my favorites of the day. Kristi, for tournaments, quarterback, what are we doing a little different over there? Because Lance is just soaking up so much ownership. So real quick, give me your take on him. We just heard Josh Allen. Again, I think he's fine, especially with Gabe Davis now giving us a cheap touchdown scoring machine that really seems to get a lot of red zone work. How are you handling Lance? And then where else could we possibly be going today?
Yeah, I like Lance, and like Tuttle mentioned, I like him more probably on DraftKings. He's not necessary on FanDuel, but a couple of guys that I like too. And right now I'm looking, I think Dak Prescott's coming in at 10% ownership. I like him quite a bit, probably more so even on FanDuel, but I like that game environment a lot. I like even double stacking it there. So I like him. I think Stafford too. I mean, he didn't do well for us last week, but my goodness, he has a great matchup going up against Baltimore that doesn't have much of a defense left. We saw what Burrow did last week. So definitely like him in the conversation. And then, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. We saw what Burrow did last week. Now he gets a tougher matchup against Kansas City, but if that game stays close, I imagine both of those guys are throwing the ball.
I want to jump in here real quick because I just got a tweet from this is from Peter Schrager. He is the senior national writer for FoxSports.com. He just tweeted out, "Don't expect James Conner today for the Cardinals." This contradicts some things we might have known before. Tuttle, it's really hard. I see a couple other well-known people are retweeting this. Chase Edmonds, how do we handle this? I guess we can move to running back in here quick because I might have to juggle some things around to get to him.
I was actually planning on this personally. So there were reports earlier from Ed Werder that there's pessimism surrounding Connor's status today. And I was hoping that would be
Rappaport said he was okay to play. So that's probably the fake news report.
So yeah, I was hoping it would be left at the Werder news and then we would get this after lock because I do have a lot of Edmonds. He's a really good play. I mean, it's a slate where we still have tons of RB value, and it doesn't obviously take away from like Ronald Jones, Sony Michel, all those guys being really good plays.
I want to play Edmonds over Michel straight up. I think at this point.
Yeah, I personally am. Yes. So yeah, I mean, definitely increase your exposure to Edmonds if you do not have him in all formats, cash, GPP, all that stuff.
All right. Search around on Twitter, guys. That is something. It's coming from someone respectable. And a couple other fantasy players are now starting to put that in there. So that is some news to maybe gain an advantage on some of your more casual opponents that had the news earlier in the day from Rappaport. But as we've learned, the Rappaport news is usually the fake news as the season has played out. All right, the rest of the running back position, Tuttle. Now we have Edmonds in there. I have moved Edmonds over Michel onto my DraftKings cash team personally. What are some of the other plays? Taylor is almost prohibitively too expensive, I think, on both sites, considering all of this, $5K to $6.5K value we have on DraftKings and all of the, $600 to $7,200 value we have on Fanduel. Where do you stand on Taylor, or are you playing some of the what look like really great value plays at the running back position?
Yeah, so DK, I think I'm playing the value guys over at JT. FanDuel, it's a little bit of a different build. You can squeeze JT in there if you want, and I'm not going to argue anybody who wants to play JT on DraftKings too. But I do prefer the builds on DK that is more of the 3 value backs, and then that allows you to pay up for Cup at wide receiver.
What about you, Kristi, in tournaments? Is there anyone really standing out to you as someone you have to play at the running back position? Because there's just, there's Montgomery, Ronald Jones. We just got Chase Edmonds, who looks to be like one of the more sneaky tournament plays in terms of ownership that you can get now, if he is indeed going to get the full workload. It's just, there's so many good value plays. I'm just finding it a little hard to get up to the Jonathan Taylors personally.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of good plays in that mid tier, especially now getting that Edmonds news, but just a couple other guys. I still really like Darrell Williams a lot in that game. Javonte Williams in that Denver game, I think he's someone too. And then just on the higher end, a guy that I like, and he'll probably most certainly go overlooked, is Joe Mixon. I expect him to continue to get a lot of touches, kind of wrote him up as a contrarian play. So I like him quite a bit on the tournament side. And then another guy too, we have him right now under 7% ownership, is Kamara. Not like he's an amazing play, but anytime you can get a guy like that at low ownership, you got to have him in consideration. So he's another guy I like for GPPs.
Anything, Tuttle, for you, what's your sort of tournament take? Because the running back position is just, it's so filled here. Do you have, maybe like, a Rashad Penny today, right? Who should get a ton of work. A DeAndre Swift, who's going to be unleashed according to Dan Campbell today. And we've seen his upside today. Do any of these guys do it for you in the tournament hemisphere?
First off, I'm happy that Kristi signed off on Kamara for me because he's one of my favorite options. I think the Mark Ingram inactive news is being swept under the rug a little bit. Kamara's been an ugly play when Ingram's active, but when he's been inactive, he returns to massive workload. So Kamara is one of my favorite tournament options because I think he's going to go low owned. In terms of, some of the other guys you mentioned, I guess in general GPP strategy for this slate running back position, I don't think Edmonds going to get steamed too hard. So I'm fine with him, but we're looking, if you sort by projected ownership, we're looking at Sony Michel, we're looking at Ronald Jones, we're looking at David Montgomery, we're looking at Devin Singletary. Like, they're projecting as good plays because the volume has been there and it's likely to continue to be, but they're very unexciting options. So, I mean, I think a running back is a position you really do want to get different this week more than normal. So doing it with Kamara, doing it with Edmonds, doing it with Joe Mixon, another guy that Kristi mentioned. I just do like getting a little bit different in tournaments at that position.
All right. I'm just fixing all of my lineups. I'm trying, I'm playing Yahoo, FanDuel, DraftKings, Tuttle, Final. I'm jamming in Chase Edmonds on all these teams right now in cash games. You think that's a good thing to do?
I think in cash, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'm moving to him over guys like, like a Devin Singletary. I like him over Sony Michel. Just, a full workload PPR back looks to be really juicy on that one. All right, Tuttle, let's go to wide receivers for cash. So we've got Cooper Kupp straight up. If you can only play one, you got Cooper Kupp or Jonathan Taylor today.
I mean, I think it varies a tiny bit by site, but when you take into consideration how strong their positions are, I think it's Cooper Kupp is the guy that you're playing over.
Yeah, that's what I've landed on too, at least for my personal cash games today. I think, and let's handle Antonio Brown because it's the tale of two sites with him. I'm definitely playing him on DraftKings on my cash team now. For a variety of reasons. I did see a report that says Mike Evans is back out and looks pretty good. But there are also other reports saying he'll be in some sort of limited role. We've got AB with all these incentives, and we have a history of Tom Brady jamming the ball to Antonio Brown for these incentives from last year. He's just 6,100. I like him as basically my second tier guy over the DJ Moores, the Brandon Cooks type players on DraftKings today.
Yeah, I think he's a fairly easy option. I mean, if you want to bring any skepticism into him as a tournament play, again, I think he's a fine cash play. He is battling an ankle injury. There were some doubts that he would be 100%. There are still some doubts that AB is 100% this week as well. I think this is an easy win spot, obviously, for Tampa Bay against the Jets. Last week, we saw them go significantly more run heavy than they usually do. And I think that's probably what you're going to see again. So again, I think AB is a good play in cash on DraftKings, but I do think there's some reason for doubt. Like, if you want to be skeptical about it and pessimistic about it, I think he's a viable fade in tournaments for sure, but even in cash, if you feel more comfortable going elsewhere.
Yeah, who would be like a Cooks, a St. Brown? I know DJ Moore is getting some love from the Blitz. You've got Christian Kirk, all those guys just a little bit cheaper. Do you have a preference of that second tier, or do you have like a whole nother cheap tier that you're going to?
I think you just go with a little bit different of a build. So like a Braxton Berrios at 3,700. And then Kupp would be your second, or Kupp, Berrios, and then kind of build from there. But you kind of alluded to it there by mentioning all these other guys. There's not a whole lot of safety in this tier in general, in the wide receiver position as a whole is weak, which is why you'll see so many people flock to Antonio Brown ownership, I think, on DraftKings. On FanDuel, like CeeDee Lamb, 7,200. He's an excellent play and somebody I would be fine playing in cash games.
Yeah, I've got Lamb on my cash FanDuel team. His individual slot matchup today is about as nutty as it can get for a guy as good as CeeDee Lamb already is. And then you mentioned Berrios. Is he like the cheap du jour wide receiver to fit in? You've got Sutton down there at 4,500. Allen Robinson's at 3,800. I think I like Berrios to get like what, 5 for 40 as a floor, something like that, with obviously a little bit more upside. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, for sure. All
right. The rest of the wide receiver position for tournaments, Kristi, we have so many games. You're going to get really good players at sub 8-7% ownership today. Who are some guys going under the radar that could just absolutely be the guy you have to have today?
One of the guys that I really like and I'm probably over the field on, I don't know where he'll come in, but because there's some higher price guys such as Cooper Kupp and even Jonathan Taylor, I like Tyreek Hill a lot. He disappointed with just one reception last week, but he's probably one of my favorite tournament plays for receiver this week. and I'm, I think he's going to be somewhat popular, but I like Gabriel Davis now that we know that Sanders is out. I think he's just a really sneaky play in there. Cortland Sutton, I think, is a little bit interesting too for someone cheaper, just because they're down. They don't have Judy, they don't have Patrick, and he kind of fits some builds. So he's someone I'm considering. We mentioned Antonio Brown. I certainly like him quite a bit. And then DK Metcalf is maybe somebody else too, hopefully a little bit under the radar. He hasn't done much either, but kind of pairing him and Brown in that Detroit game, I think are interesting for GPP plays as well.
All right, Tuttle, tight end. I'm finding myself not on the high tier for cash games on either site today. What is the lay of the land in your best interest today? All right,
I was muted.
there we go.
FanDuel, I think you just played Dallas Goedert. He's 5,800, way too cheap there. I think he's the cash option. I think I like Foster Moreau a little too much today. I think he's an excellent option. He's my favorite DraftKings cash game option.
Yeah, I got him as well at the moment.
Yeah, he's just a tremendous play there. I know people are out there exploring builds with Steven Anderson. 25. It's a $2,500 tight end, so I'm not going to bash it too much. But when you talk about having a legitimate 0-point floor, that's Steven Anderson for you. So I do think it's in your best interest to kind of get up into the Foster Moreau tier, even if you have to go down to like a Cole Kmet. It is what it is. But I don't feel overly comfortable with Anderson.
Yeah, I have Foster Moreau. Like I said, he is my tight end of choice on DraftKings at the moment. Just the ability to play just about every snap, and I think that game can get away from the Raiders pretty quickly, which could mean some extra pass work for him. And garbage time stats, they do count in DFS for all 4 quarters, so I'm okay with taking some of that. Kristi, I think most people are going to be playing cheaper tight ends, at least on DraftKings and on FanDuel, right? Mark Andrews is priced through the roof, and he's still the highest priced wide or tight end on DraftKings as well. He'll be in a lot of, Matt Stafford, Odell Beckham, type lineups and things like that to get things fit if you don't want to use Cooper Kupp and things like that. But how are you approaching tight end in tournaments? Do you have a couple of under the radar plays? Do you think spending up to make the rest of your lineup look different? Is that an interesting way? Just how would you be handling it today?
Yeah, it is. And I like getting Andrews in there. Like you said, he's mostly going to be in stacks, but I like targeting him. And then Kelsey too. To have him at projected ownership of 6% right now, he's in a smash spot. He's at 8,200 on FanDuel, priced up, of course, on DraftKings. And on DraftKings, people are going to be looking to get the cheap value in there. So I like paying up just a little bit to be contrarian. I like the guys that you guys talked about too, but I think, paying up there is going to give you a different feel. And I like Gronkowski quite a bit too. He's carrying quite a bit of ownership, but I like him as a GPP play as well.
All right. Cash defenses, real quick, Tuttle. On FanDuel, I can get to the Patriots or Buccaneers. Do you have a preference between those? You can make that work on FanDuel, or are you going to somebody cheaper today?
Flip a coin. I slightly prefer Bucks, but it's defense. But yeah, I agree with your sentiment on FanDuel. You kind of just pay up. DraftKings is a little bit difficult. We usually don't pay up for defense on DraftKings, but I think it is viable on this slate. So if you want to play Patriots, I think they're a fine cash game option. The Saints are a fine cash game option. My favorite, I usually don't have tournament takes at defense. So hopefully this doesn't come back to bite me, but I really like the Rams defense today. I think there's a decisive advantage in the Rams' favor. On the line, I think people are trying to treat Tyler Huntley like he's better than he is. I think he's capable. I think
the Ravens too pregame. I saw something. Their normal center has not been spotted on the field yet. Could be one of those like late COVID, but it hasn't been released yet type of things. But I haven't seen an update on that. But that was like 10 minutes ago. So there's another thing for you for the Rams.
Yeah, there we go.
Kristi, real quick, defense tournaments. What looks good? Anything? Patriots, Bucks, Rams. I like the Bears too. Any defense against the Giants seems pretty good here. What else can you try to do to get different today?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the Bears. I'm like, they're just in a smash spot, I think, against the Giants. I also like on the cheap side too, the Colts, and you can pair them with Jonathan Taylor. And then the Dolphins are really pretty cheap too. I mean, they just put up 25 points. Granted, this is against Tennessee, but if you're looking to save some money, those are a couple of guys or a couple defenses that I like at the bottom as well.
Someone in chat want to know, Zed Dude, FanDuel. Kristi, you didn't really get to talk cash games too much. Do you have anything different you want to add to what me and Tuttle were probably on?
Just in general or just for defense?
Yeah, just anything in general real quick.
Yeah. In general, I've kind of played around with a lot of builds. I think I'm leaning more towards getting Cooper Kupp in there and saving some money at running back. I think you could certainly get Jonathan Taylor in there if you wanted by using Lance, but I find more builds now that, especially with the Edmonds news, I think there's some great mid-tier running backs in there that make a good cash game build this week.
All right, we'll take questions. We got about 8 minutes left. Feel free to put them. We are in the live stream chat over in Discord. Again, there is no more chat on YouTube. So get your Discord, get your Rotogrinders account over there and head over to the live stream chat. Let's see here. I haven't seen a ton of questions yet. Let's see here. D. Montgomery wants to know. It's funny, it's not a David Montgomery question. It's a season long, but Sony or Rojo, you got to pick one of them today. So treat this like a cash game. Who do we all have in that combination today?
I would go Sony personally.
I'm different. I would go Rojo.
I'm gonna split the tie. I will take Rojo as well. I think Sony, I was not looking to play Sony to begin with. He just sort of fell into. I think he's more of the trap play today than some of these other ones. So Sony will definitely go off for a monster game if that is my personal feeling. But I will take Rojo in that personal 1v1. Oh, let's see. A couple more. Mr. Perfect wants to know, would you run Gordon and Williams from the Broncos? I wouldn't play both of them for sure, but does anyone want to play them in a tournament today? Because they're really only way to win this game with how devastated they are by COVID is to just ground and pound, make this a 17-14 type of game. Their defense has to play good. Kristi, are you okay with playing one of those guys?
Yeah, I like Javonte Williams quite a bit. I mean, I found him in a few of my GPP builds, so he's definitely my favorite play out of the two.
Tuttle, do you have a thought with that? I guess I think some weeks I would be okay with it, but there's so many workhorse every down running backs that are just as cheap that I just didn't really find myself going to them too much today.
Yeah, it's funny because they are the duo that I've actually been in GPP winning lineups. So, like, you typically never play two running backs from the same team. They've done it this year and they've been good. But no, I have the same take. Javonte would be my preferred option. Both are expected to be active. Both were questionable. Like maybe you'll get lucky and one of them's out, but I wouldn't count on that. I like Javonte for tournaments. I think he's fine.
All right. Yeah, got dark mode. Is dark mode new? I saw Jamino was flexing it on the ownership show. Is dark mode new, Devin, or is that something that's been around for a while?
That is brand new, Brit.
All right, yeah. So I saw Jamino flexing it, so I had to. I love dark mode for everything. So
got to be in the last couple of weeks, I would imagine.
All right, yeah. Dark mode is the way to go for sure on Lineup HQ. Zed Dude wants to know, Kristi specifically, best cheap wide receiver for FanDuel cash. He's got Sutton, Berrios, or somebody else.
I've been moving over to Gabe Davis now because I think he's right in that same range. I like him probably the best out of those, and then probably Sutton and then Berrios.
Yeah, I've got $300 extra. Let me see here. Gabe Davis is 5,300. Yes, please. Yeah, I just made that switch from I just switched from Berrios to Gabe Davis personally myself. So thank you for reminding me to do that, Kristi. I appreciate that. Couple other questions. Let's see here. Kristi, DraftKings tournament, Edmonds or DJ Moore?
I'd go Edmonds now.
I think I would play Edmonds as well. The Blitz loves DJ Moore. 11 targets are good, but when you only catch like 4 of them, that's the bad part, right, Tuttle?
I actually love DJ Moore this week, but I would still be on I'd still be on the Chase Edmonds side.
Yeah. Would you? This definitely feels like, I don't know. There's a lot of teams, so wide receivers always have the higher ceiling, but it's the 3 running back build seems very, 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 very viable in tournaments this week.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's see here. Lip wants to know Cincy DST. I don't know if he's joking, but I don't think I could do that today.
Yeah, I don't have any Cincy, and the lowest I've gone is kind of like Miami down there.
Let's see here. No other questions. Kristi, have you come up with any sort of last minute tournament takes that you've clicked around on your own personal lineups or anything we've discussed that stands out? I think mine would be Chase Edmonds with some of this later news. People late swap to him later, but all the running backs are 1 o'clock that you really want to use today. So get some exposure to him in tournaments is basically the only thing on my mind. How about you?
Yep, same. And then just getting Gabe Davis, especially on FanDuel, I think Berrios was popping on the blitz. And so, yeah, just getting him in your lineups, I think will be great.
Yeah, I want to see Davis is 5K on DraftKings, so that's a little bit, and he's 20 on Yahoo, so just a little bit out of the range. But FanDuel, I agree completely to play him over the Berrios/Sutton tier for sure. Those guys could get, 12 targets for 4 catches with no touchdowns, and Gabe Davis is just like, he's the red zone guy for the Bills when he is in the game, and I expect him to be in there quite a bit. Let's see here. We got a compliment, and he has no questions, but he enjoys the show, so you're welcome for us all filling in to keep you right up to lineup lock. Tuttle, do you have anything, last second casher tournament, a player you just think is someone that's being completely overlooked today?
I think it's Devontae week. I think Devontae Parker bounces back after the goose egg last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think Devontae Smith's a good tournament play. And I mean, we have Devontae Parker projected for like 1%, 0.10% ownership on FanDuel, 1.7 on DK. Those are my takes. Devontae.
Mine's going to be go over to Prize Picks, of course, sign up for use the Rotogrinders code. They have the Green Bay Packers defense at 6.5 fantasy points. I would put the line, I think the Blitz has it at like almost 10. So that's a good one. I like Kyle Pitts over 43.5. That's one I put some money on. Dalvin Cook over 12.5 receiving yards. I think there's going to be a lot of dump offs in that game. That should smash if you're over on Prize Picks. And Braxton Berrios is like 9.5 fantasy points. I think that gets there pretty easily. So it's not DFS, but Prize Picks is something I'm enjoying quite a bit. If you have access to it, you guys should go check it out. We're getting real close to lineup lock. I don't think anything. Let's see here. Where's my clock on my computer? I don't know. It's not working here. But I believe it's reasonably close to 1 o'clock. We've got no more questions. Tuttle, what'd you do for the new year? So I don't know if anyone saw this, but me and my wife, we're on schedule to have our first. We're having a baby boy in May, Tuttle. So I need there you go. I need some advice. What does one do for New Year's when you have a child? I did nothing. I sat and ate ice cream with my wife for New Year's.
My kids made it to 11. My kids made it to 11 o'clock. Actually, I pulled the plug at 11. My 7-year-old wanted to stay up later. I said, no, we'll just stay up for the Eastern time zone New Year's and go to bed. So they stayed up till 11.
Did you see, have you pulled unplug all the clocks in your house and play the previous year's ball drop on like YouTube onto your television at like 9:30? Have you tried that before?
I have it, but I might have to do that next week or next year.
Kristi, how was your New Year's?
It was good too. Just very low key, played some cards with some friends and family, and yeah, very low key.
So mine, we had ice cream because she's pregnant. We didn't want to go out with COVID's really surging here in central New York. So we just decided to stay in and eat ice cream. And that's right up my alley. So I had absolutely no problem with that one.
So what's the due date for May? My birthday's in May, so just curious.
So we're somewhere in the middle of May, but who really knows how that all ends up working out. So we'll have to see.
Congrats.
We'll have to see how that goes. I see a couple people saying congrats. Thanks. I got a lot of work to catch up to Tuttle though, so
that's
probably a little too late in my game, right, Tuttle?
I mean, 4 kids isn't that much.
We'll see. All right, we hit lock. I think that's going to do it for the show today. There's no more questions coming in. Go enjoy the rest of your day. Watch some football. And have a good day, everyone out there. Go win some money for Kristi and Tuttle. I'm Brit. Thanks for watching, and we out ya.